Chapter 3180. Fu Nanli thought for a while and said, "That's true." Ren Futian also nodded. Lin Sun was stunned. "Me?" "Yes, you." Xing Jian Gorge could not help but laugh. Given the intelligence of those old bastards, Xinhu, they would definitely notice that something was amiss. Moreover, they would definitely not think that we old fellows could deal such a heavy blow to their camp with our strength. So when they come, they will be very vigilant. But no matter how they schemed, they would probably absolutely never have imagined that you, young brother, would be the key to deciding the outcome. After all, there's never been a figure like you in this world that's capable of going against a boundless realm figure while merely at the creation realm. Fu Nanli seemed to worry that Lin Sun still didn't understand, so he added, "That is to say, when the enemy really attacks, you are an unexpected accident for them, and we can take advantage of this accident to give them a surprise attack." At this point, how could Lin Sun not understand? He nodded and said, "How do you think we should do it?" Xing Jian Gorge said, "Although it is said that one must first capture the ringleader to capture the followers, this situation does not apply to Xian Hu and Lei Song. As the two strongest people in the enemy's camp, they would naturally think that once an accident occurs, the first person to be attacked would definitely be one of them. So, they will definitely take extra precautions." Lin Sun thought for a while. "So, the first one we need to kill is Yi Ju and the other three?" "Yes." Xing Jian Gorge nodded. With Lin Sun's combat power, he could contain Xian Ing, Wenzai and Xing Tianyuan by himself. Naturally, he can also contain the other three. This also means that as long as we kill one of Yi Ju's group of 4, we'll be in a position to win this battle. Lin Sun understood after thinking for a while. If the battle broke out, Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli would be able to deal with Xian Hu and Lei Song respectively. As long as he could kill one of the 4, he would be able to pin down the other 3 with his strength. In this case, as long as Ren Futian joined hands with him, they could kill the 3 one by one. At that time, Ren Futian and Lin Sun would be free to fight against Heartpot and Lei Song with Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli. To achieve this, the most important thing was to kill one of them at the beginning of the battle. Otherwise, the next action would be blocked. Next, Xinjiang Gorge analyzed the background and details of Yi Ju and the other 3 to Lin one by one. Yi Ju was a boundless realm cultivator who had passed the Great Silence lifeless realm 5 times. His foundation was unfathomable and his combat power was equal to Wu Hongzi and Xian Ing. His disposition was steady like a mountain, and the lightning devour laws he grasped possessed an extremely destructive force. Moreover, he possessed a Dao weapon called the Stellar Lightning Whip that possessed terrifying might. Pan Wu Fuxing was an expert who had gone through the Great Silence lifeless realm 5 times. He had mastered the rules of the 5 elements and possessed a Dao sword called the Avalon of 5 Elements. Azure Dragon, you had passed 5 Great Silence lifeless tribulations and grasped the Thousand Doors rule. His Dao weapon was the Flowing Fire Thorn. Zijuwuji had passed the Great Silence lifeless realm 4 times and mastered the God Gang rule. His Tao weapon was a long spear called Prairie Fire. After learning the information, Lin Sun asked, "Which one of the 4 do you think we should deal with first?" Xing Jian Gorge asked, "What do you think?" "My intuition tells me that Zijuwuji is the easiest to deal with, but it would be a waste to use this opportunity on him." Lin Sun said, "Song Longyue. The Thousand Gates rule involves the use of the power of space. This power is the most mysterious and ever-changing. It's hard to defend against it. We can't deal with him first." In the end, Lin Sun concluded, "In my opinion, we should choose between Yi Ju and Pan Wu Fuxing." Xing Jian Gorge shook his head with a smile. "That's a good analysis, but you've only seen the surface. Please enlighten us." "Among the 4, Zijuwuji seems to be the weakest, but he's actually the strongest. Otherwise, Xian Kettle and Lei Song wouldn't have brought him to the world of Life Lotus." Xing Jian Gorge said, Once you fight him, you'll find that he's stronger than Yi Ju and the others. He's only slightly weaker than Xian Kettle and Lei Song. Lin Sun was surprised. This was something he hadn't expected. From this, it was easy to make mistakes based on cultivation alone. Of course, if the enemy thought that Lin Sun was just a weak creation cultivator, it was also easy to make mistake. All of this was based on cognitive biases. 7 days later, Xian Hu, Lei Song and the rest set off towards the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain. Along the way, Xian Kettle said quickly, "Those old bastards from Xingjian Gorge must have made all kinds of preparations. The only thing we need to be wary of is the unknown change. In other words, when we reach Lotus Leaf Mountain, we must be vigilant. If there's any danger, we'd rather retreat immediately than give them a chance." Lei Song and the others nodded. They were all old men who had fought and killed for countless years. They'd experienced the ups and downs of the world and been baptized by blood. How could they not know the danger of the current situation? Anger was destined to solve no problem, and the first thing they had to do was to ensure their own survival. However, before they could arrive at Divine Lotus Mountain, the figures of Xian Hu and the others suddenly stopped, and their eyes looked towards the distance in unison while their auras seethed and rumbled. All of a sudden, the 6 boundless realm existences were ready for battle. Their reaction speed was amazing. The world shook and all directions shook. The terrifying murderous aura was like an overwhelming torrent, filling every inch of the void. If it was any other cultivator here, they might not be able to withstand the pressure of this murderous aura. At the same time, a hearty laughter sounded. "Everyone, we've been waiting for a long time." Along with the voice, Xingjian Gorge, Fu Nanli and Renfutian's figures appeared out of thin air. This scene caused the eyes of Xian Kettle, Lei Song and the others to narrow. If one looked carefully, one would be able to notice that every single one of them was accumulating strength and waiting. They were like a fully drawn bow, and it seemed as if they would immediately erupt with their strongest strength at the slightest sign of trouble. "The experts in our camp were all harmed by all of you?" Xian Kettle, who wore a white monk's robe and seemed like a handsome young man, spoke with a low voice. "Exactly." Xingjian Gorge smiled and nodded. Xian Kettle, Lei Song, and the others became restless while their expressions sank. This matter was actually related to these old rivals of theirs. "With just the 3 of you?" Lei Song spoke in a low voice. He wore a green robe, had a thin appearance, and his entire body was covered in a weathered aura. At this moment, when he spoke, his terrifying aura shook the nearby space to the point of collapsing. Extremely far away, Xingjian Gorge seemed to be very calm. "Of course not. Who else?" Yi Ju asked. He wore a violet robe, and his figure was extremely tall. He held a dazzling and crystalline whip in his hand. A myriad of strands of starlight and thunderstorm arcs that were fine like threads flowed ceaselessly within it. "Ha ha!" Xingjian Gorge started laughing. "You want to know? You'll know after we fight." His composed attitude caused Xian Kettle, Lei Song, and the others to frown without end. "Looks like all of you old fellows have made sufficient preparations, and that's why you dare to be so fearless." Xian Kettle sighed lightly. The unknown was what people feared the most. Presently, the most disadvantageous thing to Xian Kettle was that they were unable to confirm exactly who that unexpected event came from. This caused them to not dare make a rash move. "If we didn't make sufficient preparations, then how could we dare to wait here?" Xingjian Gorge grinned. "Why aren't all of you standing on guard on Lotus Leaf Mountain?" Suddenly Zijuwuji asked. He wore linen clothes, had a robust figure, dense black hair that hung loosely on his shoulders, and golden starlight surged within his eyes, causing him to be cold, fierce, and terrifying. He held a jet-black spear that was an entire 3 m long. The body of the spear was inscribed with strange and warped totems of the laws, and the tip of the spear emanated a wisp of a gorgeous blood-red glow. The aura it emanated caused countless tiny vortexes and rifts to appear in the nearby space, and it was a horrifying sight. It's naturally to welcome all of you. Of course, we don't want our battle to affect the others on Lotus Leaf Mountain. Xingjian Gorge seemed to be very calm and composed from the beginning until the end, whereas Fu Nanli and Ren Futian had been watching coldly from the side without saying a word. Aren't all of you afraid that we'll kill our way over? Lei Song raised his brows. With us here, it'll probably be very difficult for all of you to kill your way over, said Xingjian Gorge. Xian Kettle said, Why do I feel that your true trump card is on Lotus Leaf Mountain? The others were surprised and bewildered as well. At the bottom of it all, it was because they were unable to confirm what the unknown, unexpected event was, and that was why they were so cautious at this moment. Moreover, they were unable to discern if Xingjian Gorge and the others were deliberately setting up a deceptive formation, or if there was some other ambush that they didn't know about. This feeling was extremely torturous. Even if they were probing over and over again, they still felt like they were being controlled. However, Xingjian Gorge sighed and said, Everyone, all of you have enough questions. If all of you are here to chat, then forgive me for not accompanying you. As he spoke, he, Fu Nanli, and Ren Futian turned around and left just like that. This sudden scene made Xian Kettle and the others' eyelids twitch, and their faces darkened. What kind of tricks were these D*MN old bastards playing? Were they playing hard to get? Were they deliberately setting up a deceptive formation? Were they inviting them into a trap? They really couldn't figure it out, and this made their faces even more unsightly. It's destined that we won't be able to understand the situation if we continue like this. We have to give it a try. Yi Ju's face was cold. All right, since they are returning to Lotus Leaf Mountain, let's follow them. I'd like to see what they are up to. Xian Kettle took a deep breath, suppressed the doubts in his heart, and made a decision. Immediately, they stepped into the void and followed. Even though Xingjian Gorge and the others had their backs facing them, even though this was the best opportunity to launch a surprise attack, they still resisted the urge to attack. All of this was naturally seen by Xingjian Gorge's divine consciousness, and they couldn't help but smile. This feeling that it really felt like they were walking a dog. The second update was a little late, but they would continue to update based on the situation. Chapter 3181. The expressions of Xian Hu, Lei Song, and the others quickly turned gloomy. They noticed that the group from Travel Sword Gorge hadn't returned to Lotus Leaf Mountain, and they were strolling leisurely around the area around Lotus Leaf Mountain instead. On the other hand, they who'd been following behind them were like dogs that were being led by the nose, and they seemed to be rather stupid. These three old bastards are clearly playing tricks on us. Panwu Futian was furious, and his gaze was terrifying. He wore a navy blue robe and stood on a multicolored sword, and his imposing aura was like a mountain. But at this moment, his expression was unsightly to the extreme. Why do I suspect that they're intentionally provoking us, and they seem to want to infuriate us and make us do something rash? Azure Dragon Yu frowned. His figure was blurry like an illusory shadow, and his aura was extremely obscure and indistinct. In my opinion, we should directly make a move against Lotus Leaf Mountain. If there really is an ambush, then we just have to dodge far away at the first possible moment. In this way, we definitely won't be led by the nose by those old bastards from Travel Sword Gorge. Zish Wuji, who wore linen clothes and held the Prairie Blaze spear, had a murderous look on his face. Xian Hu and Lei Song exchanged glances and went silent. If such a situation didn't change, then they would always be under the control of others. Caution and caution were necessary, but if they were too cautious, then it would instead become fearful. Everyone, move far away. Allow me to blast Lotus Leaf Mountain and break out of this predicament. Xian Hu decided. His figure suddenly soared into the sky while his snow-white monk's robe fluttered, and he seemed like an otherworldly immortal. A wave of Buddhist light flowed in his hand, and then 24 translucent, crystalline, and smooth prayer beads that were round like jade floated up into appearance. Every single prayer bead was inscribed with a mysterious Mahayana scripture. When this string of prayer beads appeared, the heavens and the earth swiftly resounded with the sound of Buddhist chanting. Divine flowers descended from the sky, golden lotuses sprang up from the ground, and numerous phenomena of a pure land of Buddhism appeared in succession, causing this expanse of the heavens and the earth to be covered in a boundlessly grand, tranquil, and peaceful aura. Dvana prayer beads. The heart pot was one of the eternal treasures, the 24 prayer beads, all of which were condensed from the Sarira beads of eternal realm Buddhas. The Buddhist characters engraved on them represented the 24 supreme divine abilities of the Zen Tao. According to rumor, once this treasure appeared, it could instantly transform into 24 levels of radiant Buddha realms that could suppress all Taos in the world and destroy all evil in the world. It was truly miraculous and boundlessly terrifying. At the same time, Lei Song, Yi Ju, and the others moved far away, and they withdrew their own treasures and accumulated strength. Yi Ju held the stellar lightning whip in his hand, and it seemed as if a myriad of stars had transformed into a flowing waterfall of lightning. The Tao sword of the Avalon of 5 elements in front of Panwu Fusheng let out a clear and melodious sword hum. 5 elemental rules emerged from the sword and formed 5 layers of mysterious sky canopies. Song Longyue's illusory figure seemed to have vanished in an instant, and only specks of jade-green flowing light were faintly visible in the nearby space. The laws of 1,000 doors he possessed were related to the profundities of space, and even the Tao weapon, Flame Strike, seemed to have concealed itself and vanished, causing others to be unable to see its entire appearance. On the other hand, Ziju Wuji held the Prairie Blaze spear in his hand while his entire body seethed with peerlessly formidable godly energy laws, and it formed layer upon layer of baleful energy waves that shook the heavens and the earth. Instantly, the heavens and the earth dimmed down while space wailed and fell into disorder. Merely this terrifying imposing aura pressed down upon the restrictions and divine rank order that covered the entire Lotus Leaf Mountain to the point it roiled violently without end, and it suffered a terrifying impact. Right when the heart pot was about to attack the Lotus Leaf Mountain. In the distance, Travel Sword Gorge, Fu Nanli and Ren Futian glanced at each other, and then they turned around at the first possible moment and flashed towards Lei Song and the others. Monstrous might surged out from every single one of them, and the aura that belonged to the boundless realm was like a tsunami that caused this expanse of the heavens and the earth to tremble even more. Travel Sword Gorge withdrew the lightning pagoda. On the other hand, Fu Nanli and Ren Futian, who stood by his side, each withdrew a brilliant red sword and a peerlessly snow-white halberd. "Attack!" Travel Sword Gorge shouted loudly. The 3 of them charged towards them directly. Seeing this, Heart Pot and the others couldn't help but sneer. They were merely testing the waters by attacking the Lotus Leaf Mountain, and they couldn't keep their cool? It seemed like they had overestimated the other party just now. Something's wrong. Suddenly, Heart Pot's pupils constricted, and he keenly sensed that at the moment when Travel Sword Gorge and the others made their move, the divine rank order that covered the Lotus Leaf Mountain all rumbled and released a terrifying power. The divine rank order had layers upon layers, and there were a total of 27 types. At this moment, these divine rank order were all activated with full force, and the power they released was like layers upon layers of heavenly river torrents that blotted out the heavens and earth, sweeping towards them. Apart from this, an earth-shattering explosion suddenly resounded in the surroundings, and then countless dense and dazzling restrictions surged out. The restriction of God's judgment. The terrifying killing formation that Lin Sun had set up in the underground cave dwelling back then. At this moment, this formation blocked Heart Pot and the others' escape route. There really is an ambush. The eyes of Lei Song and the others flickered with divine light, but they didn't panic. Retreat first. Alright. Coincidentally, Xian Hu, Lei Song and the others attacked with all their might. Boom! The 24 great Brahma Zen beads soared through the sky, and 24 Maitreya Buddhist realms appeared. The star jade thunder whip exploded in the sky, showering down billions of thunderstorms and starlight, and the 5 elements' heavenly Daos sword turned into layers of sword veils. These greater boundless realm existences who had been in battle for a long time, once they attacked, they displayed incomparably shrewd tacit understanding, and their cooperation was flawless. Instantly, the restriction of God of Judgment could not withstand it anymore, and it suddenly collapsed, splashing out countless magnificent light showers. No matter how powerful this formation was, how could it block the full force attacks of 6 greater boundless realm existences? The layers of divine rank order that came crashing down from the Lotus Leaf Mountain were all resisted and dissolved by Heart Pot, Lei Song, and the others with unparalleled strength. However, just as they were about to retreat, Travel Sword Gorge and the others had already arrived. "We can't be held back by them, or something will definitely happen," Lei Song shouted. Boom! Heart Pot and Panwu Fusheng worked together, Lei Song and Song Long Yu worked together, and Yi Ju and Zish Wuji worked together to attack Travel Sword Gorge, Fu Nanli and Ren Futian. 2 against 1, and attacking with full force, they did not seek to kill the enemy, but to retreat from this place. Under these circumstances, they were confident that they could easily achieve their goal. Rumble, 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 rumble! Earth-shattering and intense collisions resounded, and heaven and earth were in chaos. Terrifying rule-bending powers were like worlds colliding, splashing out an infinite amount of light showers. It was as if they were going to overturn everything and overturn everything. It was far too terrifying. The silhouettes of the unparalleled giants appeared incomparably imposing and dazzling. Their heavenly prowess was enough to make all living beings prostrate and worship them. Under this attack, Travel Sword Gorge, Fu Nanli and Rin Futian's silhouettes were forcefully pushed back. At this moment, Heart Pot, Lei Song, and the others felt a strong urge to take advantage of this opportunity to kill their opponents. But they all held back. The unforeseen event that they had been on guard against hasn't appeared yet. If they were to be held back by Travel Sword Gorge and the others now, it would be unwise. In the end, they had to hold back and figure out who the unforeseen event was. That was the smartest thing to do. Therefore, Heart Pot and the others retreated at the first moment. They teleported far away. They appeared very conservative and cautious. At this moment, Travel Sword Gorge and the others, who were pushed back by their attack, charged at them with all their might. All of them were glowing with terrifying power. Also, the 27 divine-level powers on the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain were being used by them to attack their opponents. Seeing this, Heart Pot, Lei Song, and the others realized that Travel Sword Gorge's actions were very likely to create an opportunity for the unforeseen event to attack. Therefore, they retreated even more decisively and swiftly. They didn't plan on giving Travel Sword Gorge any chance to hold them back. But just then, a silhouette appeared out of thin air and blocked their path of retreat. The unforeseen event has appeared. Heart Pot, Lei Song, and the others were shocked. Their entire body's chi was mobilized to the extreme, as if they were going to fight with all their might. The power they displayed was even more terrifying than before. Because to them, an unforeseen event that could annihilate Xian, Wenzai, and the rest of the boundless realm powerhouses, as well as trample the base of their camp, was definitely an existence that was even stronger and more terrifying than the Travel Sword Gorge in them. How could they dare to not go all out? It was just that, the moment they decided to go all out, a look of shock surfaced in their eyes. Lin Sun? How could it be this damned little bastard? When did he arrive in the realm of Lingwu? Especially when they sensed that Lin Sun's unconcealable aura belonged to the creation realm, they couldn't help but feel ashamed. They were actually scared by a small fry in the creation realm just now. This made their faces burn. They thought it was that incomparably terrifying, unforeseen event that had appeared. Who would have thought it was just a grasshopper that they could crush at will? These thoughts flashed through their minds in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the place where Lin Sun appeared happened to be the closest to Zijuwuji. Therefore, Zijuwuji didn't even think about it. He grabbed at Lin Sun through the air. Lin Sun might be extremely weak, but these old guys hated him to the core. At this moment, Zijuwuji only had one thought: to capture this little bastard alive and slowly torture him later. Just then, a playful smile suddenly appeared on Lin Sun's lips. Then, his figure suddenly charged forward. When he saw this, Zijuwuji couldn't help but be surprised. Was he in such a hurry to die? But in the next instant, his expression changed. Boom! His palm force could pose a threat to those in the boundless realm, but at this moment, it was easily shattered by Lin Sun's punch. This, Zijuwuji's heart shook. His instincts honed through countless years of battle made him keenly aware that something was wrong. Could this kid be that unforeseen event? He didn't have much time to think. Relying on his instincts, he swung the Prairie Divine spear in his hand. The demonic scarlet spear tip was like a world-destroying blade, filled with the terrifying and overbearing aura of the divine wind. Right at the same time that this strike was executed, Lin Sun's 5 great Dao physiques suddenly flashed out. In an instant, he seemed to have transformed into 6 people, and all of them held eternal Dao armaments in their hands as they attacked. Clang! Zijuwuji's Prairie Divine spear was forcibly blocked by the abyssal sword cauldron. He couldn't believe his eyes. Was this the power of a creation realm cultivator? However, before he could react, Lin Sun's 5 Tao forms had already besieged him, and the extremely horrible destructive power surrounded him from all directions. The third watch was before 11 p.m. Chapter 3182. At this moment, Zijuwuji felt his blood run cold. Zijuwuji's hair stood on end. Were these great Dao clones all this powerful? Boom! Fierce clashes resounded. In an instant, Zijuwuji was severely injured. Blood splattered from his body, and his body was damaged. This wasn't an accident, but a series of accidents. He hadn't expected Lin Sun to block their path of retreat. He hadn't expected a creation cultivator like Lin Sun to shatter his palm with one punch. He hadn't expected his prairie fire spear to be blocked by Lin Sun's sword cauldron. Before he could react, Lin Sun's 5 Dao bodies had already surrounded him. Each of them displayed unparalleled combat power, severely injuring him in an instant. However, it had to be said that Zijuwuji's combat power was very strong. Had it been someone else, they would have died countless times over. While Zijuwuji had only gone through 4 great desolation tribulations, he was stronger than boundless realm cultivators like Xin Ing and Wenzai. Just as Xinjiang Gorge had analyzed, Zijuwuji, who seemed to be the weakest, was actually the strongest of the enemies apart from Xin Hu and Lei Song. Damn it! This kid is the unforeseen variable. He's only a creation cultivator, but he's already so powerful. When Xin Hu, Lei Song, and the others noticed this scene, their expressions changed. Not only Zijuwuji, but even they were caught off guard and couldn't believe it. What was more, no one had expected that Lin Sun, a creation realm character, would be the change they had been guarding against all the time. Taoist Ziju is in danger. Save him! Xin Hu shouted. Their reactions weren't slow. The moment Zijuwuji was heavily injured, they acted without hesitation. But at the same time, boom! The earth cracked. Xinjiang Gorge, Fu Nanli, and Renfutian charged at full force. The situation changed drastically. If Xin Hu and Lei Song tried to save Zijuwuji, they'd be attacked from behind by Xinjiang Gorge. The consequences would be dire. If they didn't, Zijuwuji's life would be in danger. The only chance was that Xin Hu and the others had more people. You guys deal with Lin Sun, Lei Song, Yi Ju, and I will deal with the 3 of them. Immediately, Xin who made a decision and transmitted it to the others. Rumble, the war had completely broken out. Xingjian Gorge, Fu Nanli and Ren Futian were immediately held back by Xin, Hu, Lei Song and Yi Ju. However, when Panwu Fuxing and Song Dragon rushed to Lin Sun, something strange happened. So. On Lin Sun's side, another 3 figures rushed out of thin air. They were Gu Yuexing, Shui Yi and Shun Huaijia, the 3 figures of lesser boundless realm. They had been hiding in Lin Sun's sword cauldron all this time. Now that they rushed out together, they immediately attacked Panwu and Fuxing. Get lost! Panwu Fuxing shouted loudly as the 5-element sword in his hand swung out layer upon layer of sword curtains that emitted resplendent lights and were accompanied by a peerless sword intent that poured out like a torrent. Kill! Song Longyue's expression was cold as he attacked with all his might. Indeed, Gu Yuexing, Shui Yi, and Shun Huaijia were all at the minor boundless realm, but every single one of them had extremely heaven-defying and formidable foundations. According to the Traversing Sword Gorge, their battle prowess was comparable to Zhu Wutian. They were all peerless characters in this realm. Because of this, on this day, in the battle, Lin Sun would take them with him. Rumble! Gu Yuexing and the others attacked with all their strength, clashing with Panwu Fuxing and Azure Dragon Yu. Immediately, Panwu and Fuxing were hindered. This shocked and angered them. The situation was too urgent. If they couldn't save Ziju Wuji in time, how could the heavily injured Ziju Wuji survive? Kill! Panwu, Fuxing, and the others started to go all out, displaying all their trump card. Soon, Gu Yuexing and the others couldn't bear it any longer. They began to suffer injuries and their situation became dangerous. But none of them retreated. All of them fought bravely for Lin Sun. Kill! The battle at the Travel Sword Gorge was also extremely intense. The difference was, whether it was the Traversing Sword Gorge or Fu Nanli, they could fight Xin Hu and Lei Song as equals. Ren Futian, on the other hand, had the upper hand in his battle against Yi Ju. Ren Futian might not be as strong as the Traversing Sword Gorge or Fu Nanli, but he wasn't someone Yi Ju could compare to either. When they fought, Yi Ju couldn't even lift his head. However, it was impossible to kill Yi Ju in a short period of time. All of this meant that the key to this battle rested on Lin Sun. Kill! 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 At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to be fighting with his life on the line as well. He'd completely unleashed all of his cultivation, and his main body and the 5 Dao forms seemed to have gone mad as they attacked Ziju Wuji ceaselessly. When he was dealing with Xin Ing, Wenzai and Xing Tianyuan in the canyon, Lin Sun didn't fall into a disadvantageous position by himself, not to mention dealing with Ziju Wuji alone. If Ziju Wuji's battle prowess wasn't stronger than Xin Ing and the others, he would have been killed by Lin Sun. Of course, Ziju Wuji didn't have it easy either. In the beginning, he was severely injured by a series of accidents. Now, he was attacked by Lin Sun with all his might. His injuries became more and more serious, and his body was badly mutilated. Bastard! Bastard! Ziju Wuji's hair was disheveled as he roared. He was really fighting with all his might, as if he wanted to perish together with Lin Sun. But gradually, he lost all hope. Lin Sun's attacks were extremely overbearing, but his chi defense was also extremely tight. Ziju Wuji's many forbidden techniques were either dissolved or failed to hurt Lin Sun at all. Impossible! This is impossible! He's just a creator. How can he be so powerful? Ziju Wuji's injuries became more and more serious, and his consciousness became blurry. Die! Suddenly, Lin Sun let out a roar, and his own body and the 5 Tao bodies launched a powerful blow together. Bang! Ziju Wuji's already injured body exploded, and blood rained down. His spirit didn't even have time to escape before it was obliterated by the terrifying torrent of power and dissipated into nothingness. He's dead? In the distance, Xin Hu, Lei Song and the others' hearts sank. The most troublesome thing was that when they wanted to retreat, they were entangled by Sword Gorge and the others. They didn't have a chance at all. This shocked and angered them. Boom! At this moment, Lin Sun was already charging towards Panwu, Fuxing and Song Longyue. His true self and the 5 great Tao bodies directly surrounded the 2 greater boundless realm existences. Thank you for your help, seniors. Please return to Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain to recuperate. Leave this to me, Lin Sun said quickly. He noticed that Gu Yueshing, Shun Huaijia and Shui Yi were all seriously injured, but none of them flinched. This also created a chance for him to kill Zijuwuji. How could Lin Sun not be grateful? Gu Yueshing and the others looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief before retreating. Boom! The battle became more and more terrifying. The world was in complete chaos, and destructive torrents of power were everywhere. But compared to before, the situation now was completely different. Sword Gorge and Fu Nanli firmly restrained Xian, Hu and Lei Song. Ren Futian firmly held the upper hand, and he killed Yi Ju to the point his clothes were dyed red with blood. On Lin Sun's side, Panwu, Fuxing and Song Longyue were suppressed as well, and they started to suffer injuries as time passed. At this moment, Xian, Hu, Lei Song and the others finally realized who the culprit was that killed the experts of their various powers and destroyed the territories of their various camp. However, they didn't expect that even though they had been on the alert all the time, they were still caught unprepared by Lin Sun's sudden change. In the end, who could have imagined that a young man at the creation realm could possess such combat strength? The current situation was undoubtedly very disadvantageous to them. Moreover, they were unable to escape in a short period of time. Kill! 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 The surroundings of Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain were filled with roars, battle cries and roars, and they seemed like thunderclaps that surged through the 9 heavens. All sorts of eternal Tao soldiers that possessed world-shaking might erupted with boundless light, and they collided with each other, causing the sky to show signs of collapse and chaos. All sorts of supreme divine abilities swept out like a raging storm, causing the area to seem as if it had fallen into a calamity. Along with the passage of time, Panwu, Fuxing, and Song Longyue's injuries grew more and more severe. Although they were boundless realm existences, their combat strength was only comparable to Wenzai, Xing Tianyuan, and the others. They were slightly inferior to Zishwuji, and they were far inferior to Xian, Hu and Lei Song. Under such circumstances, how could they possibly be a match for Lin Sun? Die! Along with Lin Sun's shout, the avalon of 5 elements in Fuxing's hand was blasted away, and his figure was blasted into the dojo by Lin Sun's main body, Chihua, and Blackwater. In an instant blood splattered, and his body and soul were destroyed. Die! At practically the same time, Song Longyue, who had been besieged by Lin Sun's greenwood, yellow earth, and platinum Taoist physiques, was drowned by the mighty torrent of destructive energy, and his figure instantly turned into ashes. How is this possible? Only Xian, Hu, Lei Song, and Yi Ju were left. They were utterly shocked. Panwu, Fuxing, and Song Longyue, 2 boundless realm existences, had been killed by Lin Sun, a young man in the creation realm. How could they not be shocked? Including Zijuwuji, there were already 3 boundless realm existences who had died at Lin Sun's hands. All of this was enough to make any eternal realm cultivator tremble in fear. Senior, let me help you. At this moment, Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers had already rushed over from afar, their bodies emitting terrifying waves of power. His eyes were ice-cold as he stared at Xian Hu. Back then, it was this old monk who had crushed eldest senior brother's Taoist physique and primordial spirit with a single finger. Only by killing him would Lin Sun be able to vent his hatred. Boom! Lin Sun and his doppelgangers had already charged forward to deal with Xian Hu together with traversing Sword Gorge. Their fighting spirit was boiling, and their killing intent was burning. More updates for you. Chapter 3183. As soon as Lin Sun joined in, Xian Kettle immediately felt how terrifying Lin Sun's power was. Before, he could still compete with Xing Jian Gorge. But as Lin Sun and his doppelganger came, the balance was broken and he fell into a disadvantageous position. No wonder Zijuwuji is no match for Lin Sun. This kind of power is indeed unique. In the past eras, there is almost no one like him, Xian Kettle sighed in his heart. From this moment on, Xian Kettle gave up the idea of escaping. His gaze was clear while a wisp of calmness appeared on his face that was handsome like a young man. Life and death are unpredictable, so I should be fearless, Xian Kettle said word by word. Suddenly, his momentum changed. He was ethereal like a supreme Buddha without emotion. Hundreds of millions of snow-white lotus flowers fell from his body, all of which were transformed by the power of rules. Be careful, this old monk is going to risk his life. Xing Jian Gorge's pupils shrank and warned Lin Sun. He knew very well just how terrifying it would be if an old fellow at Xian whose level decided to throw away his life. It's futile. Lin Sun's eyes were cold, and his attacks became more and more overbearing and fierce. He showed no mercy. His original body and the 5 Tao forms all shone and attacked Xian Kettle with all their strength. Rise. In front of Xian Kettle, the 24 Doberman Zen beads roared and exploded one by one, bursting with Buddha's light and turning into 24 Maitreya Buddhist realms, covering the whole world. At this moment, traversing Sword Gorge and Lin Sun shuddered with fear. They felt a piercing sense of danger spreading out. Both of them noticed that the space between Xian, whose eyebrows quietly split open. As blood spurted out, countless Buddhist runes that looked like they were made of celestial gold flew out from the crack between his eyebrows and into the 24 radiant Buddha realms before him. Clatter from a distance, a golden waterfall of Buddha's runes seemed to fly out of the space between Xian Kettle's eyebrows. It was so bright and dazzling, full of sacred and boundless aura. It was also so powerful that it made people tremble. This old thing actually melted all the rules of the Great Way. He mastered and completely integrated them into the Doberman Zen beads. Xing Jian Gorge's face darkened. Xian Kettle was so ruthless that he was going to sacrifice himself and everything to perish together with them. At this moment, the wisest course of action was undoubtedly to retreat far away and avoid the brunt of this attack. But Lin Sun didn't intend to retreat. Even if Heart Pot was desperate at the moment, Lin Sun knew that as long as he retreated, Heart Pot might seize the opportunity to escape. At that time, it would be even more difficult to find another opportunity to destroy the Heart Pot. Kill. Lin Sun took a deep breath. The strength of his main body and the 5 Tao forms were released to an unprecedented extent, as if they were on fire, as if they were going to risk their lives. Seeing this, Xing Jian Gu gritted his teeth and threw caution to the wind as well. Risking his life? Anything is fine. Let's see who will be able to survive. Rumble, the situation of the battle grew even more horrifying. It seemed as if the heavens and the earth had been struck to the point of sinking into oblivion, and it transformed into a chaotic and turbulent place. Moreover, destructive storms of destruction raged and raged throughout the surroundings. Condense. In the midst of the battle, the Heart Pot suddenly let out a Zen sound. Boom. In front of him, the 24 overflowing Buddhist realms suddenly shrank countless times, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into a golden Buddhist commandment blade. The Buddhist commandment blade was 3 feet long, and its handle was like a lotus. The blade reflected the power of 24 layers of rules. At this moment, the golden power fluctuations spread out from the Buddhist commandment blade, like the first light that tore the chaos apart. At this time, Heart Pot's face was pale and transparent, because the strength of his whole body seemed to have been drained. His skin, which could be called eternal, was dark and cracked inch by inch, like the old bark that had lost its vitality. Even his handsome cheeks were covered with countless wrinkles, and he suddenly became incomparably old. If you too can take this strike, I will die without regret. Heart Pot opened his mouth, and his voice became old and hoarse. This strike completely melted the rules of the Great Way he had cultivated all his life, and completely drained his cultivation and his Tao karma. This saber was unparalleled in its raising and unparalleled in its pressing. Even if the great silence fatal disaster was in front of him, Heart Pot was confident that he could break it with one strike. After this slash, his life and Tao karma would also be destroyed. But Heart Pot didn't care. He wanted to take the lives of Xing Jiangu and Lin Sun at the price of his life. Everyone would die together. Die without regret? Then I will send you to hell. At this moment, Xing Jiangu's fighting intent surged, and he seemed to be ready to risk everything. He flicked his fingers. Wind, thunder, earth, fire. 4 Taoist swords appeared in front of Xing Jiangu. Each of them was made of eternal divine materials that he had collected in the world in countless years and cultivated with his life's efforts. Behind every sword, there was a legend that could be sung and moved to tears. Xing Jiangu flicked his fingers again. Lifeless, return, go, and void. Another 4 Taoist swords appeared in front of Xing Jiangu. They were formed by the power of rules he had mastered. At this moment they were all released, turned into swords, and flew across the sky. Finally, Xing Jiangu took a deep breath and put his hands together. The Great Way is 9. A Taoist sword formed from essence, energy, and spirit appeared. It was 3 inches long, and when this sword appeared, it was instantly like a finishing touch. The 8 swords of wind, lightning, earth, fire, lifeless, return, go, and emptiness seemed to have found their backbone, and they gave off a shocking sword cry. Their vital energy connected into one and buzz. Rise! Xing Jiangu waved his sleeve. Suddenly, 9 flying swords were arranged in a line, crossing the sky and earth. They seemed to intend to split the heavens and the earth apart. The seemingly 9 swords seemed to have fused into one, and they transformed into a dazzling strand of sword qi that separated the sky. The Great Way is 9. You deserve to be the personal disciple of the founder of Yuan sect. Xian Kettle sighed with emotion. As he spoke, his whole body turned into a light and merged into the golden Buddhist commandment blade. The monstrous saber qi rose into the sky. Boom! Xian Kettle's soul drove the golden Buddhist commandment blade straight into the sky, cutting through the night sky, and chopping at Xing Jiangu and Lin Sun. The golden saber rainbow was thousands of meters long, like a white rainbow piercing the sun or a comet attacking the moon. It was unstoppable. At this moment, Fu Nanli, Lei Song, Ren Futian, and Yi Ju, who were fighting fiercely, couldn't help but change their faces and feel shocked. 9 returned to 1, sky opening. At the same time, Xing Jiangu flicked his sleeves. The 9 Taoist swords transformed into a stream of sword qi, which instantly pierced through the air and headed straight for the golden Buddhist commandment blade that traversed the sky. At the moment when the sword qi and the blade collided, the world darkened, the void in all directions suddenly sank, and the vast mountains and rivers nearby shook. Everything seemed to fall into great terror at this moment. Then, clang! The sound of collision was like the first thunder at the beginning of chaos. A Taoist sword in Xing Jiangu couldn't bear it and was shaken away by the golden Buddhist commandment blade, buzzing. Then, the second, the third, the fourth, all of them couldn't resist the strike of the golden Buddhist commandment blade and were defeated one by one. The golden Buddhist commandment blade was too domineering. It was invincible and unbreakable, and even vaguely visible. The figure of Xian Kettle. It was really desperate. This strike burned the soul, Taoist body, cultivation, and the Great Way. This was the strike of Xian Kettle, a boundless realm existence, at the cost of his life. How could it be ordinary? In an instant, the 9th Taoist sword in Xing Jiangu was also shaken away. The golden Buddhist commandment blade was only 3 meters away from Xing Jiangu. Xing Jiangu could even see the emotionless expression of Xian Kettle in the golden Buddhist commandment blade. Oh no! Fu Nanli and Ren Futian, who were fighting, changed their expressions at the same time. It was true that Xian Kettle wouldn't be able to survive, but if this strike fell, Xing Jiangu would also die. Xing Jiangu also understood this. At this critical moment, he didn't feel sad or happy. He rushed forward, trying to exhaust the power of the golden Buddhist commandment blade with his own strength. In this way, Lin Sun could be free of worries. In this way, he could win this battle. However, what was faster than Xing Jiangu was a Taoist sword. This sword seemed to come out of thin air with an indescribable dazzling light. It arrived in an instant and chopped on the golden Buddhist commandment blade. Boom! The world was turned upside down and everything collapsed. A vast surge of energy spread in all directions from the point of contact between the Taoist sword and the golden Buddhist commandment blade. The terrible torrent of destruction even shook Xing Jiangu, who was rushing forward, into the air. He coughed up a mouthful of blood and was seriously injured. However, he didn't care about this. He stared straight into the distance, and his face was full of horror. It was a slash that Xian who had unleashed using his entire life's cultivation and life. It was so powerful that he was prepared to die to defend against it. But at this time, the golden Buddhist commandment blade was blocked. This, almost at the same time, Lei Song and Yi Ju's faces changed dramatically. Then, Fu Nanli and Ren Futian were also shocked. They saw that the storm between heaven and earth gradually subsided, and the light dissipated, revealing a strange scene. A Taoist sword crossed the void and blocked the golden Buddhist commandment blade. And behind the Taoist sword was Lin Sun's tall figure. Previously, when Lin Sun sensed that the heart pot was risking his life, he did not hesitate to put all the 5 Tao forms into his own body. Then, he swung the sword with all his might. Therefore, he could come at this critical moment and block in front of Xing Jiangu. And this sword was also the embodiment of Lin Sun's lifelong cultivation. It contained the power of the 5 sequences of nirvana, creation, the ruins of ultimate, and the power of time. At this time, Xian Kettle and the golden Buddhist commandment blade showed a look of confusion. At this moment, his consciousness seemed to have fallen into a chaotic world, and he saw numerous unbelievable scenes. There was the ruins of End that were protected by 5 divine mountains, the ruins of creation that seemed like the nest of an era, time was like a river that surged and flowed across the universe, the myriad of Daos in the world floated and flowed, and countless lives were reincarnated repeatedly between life and death. There was also an era river flowing mightily in the primal chaos, and far away from it, a tall figure was standing above it. When seeing this scene, Xian Kettle couldn't help asking, "Is this the Tao you seek?" "Yes." Lin Sun's eyes were cold. "There is such an incredible Tao in this world. No wonder the creation realm can have such power. It turns out that this Tao has already transcended the change of era." A murmur sounded from the golden Buddhist commandment blade. Xian Kettle seemed to be relieved, unwilling, and emotional. Crack! Crack! When the sound rang out, the golden Buddhist commandment blade collapsed inch by inch. Chapter 3184. The golden Buddhist commandment blade was transformed from the 24 Brahman realms. It carried Xian Kettle's lifelong Taoism and life. Once this blade was used, he would die no matter whether he killed the enemy or not. At this moment, the blade collapsed. Everyone knew that Xian Kettle had no chance of surviving. Lei Song and Yi Ju's faces changed and their hearts sank. Xian, who sacrificed his life to attack, but did not manage to kill the enemy, this caused them to feel a sense of sympathy for the death of the rabbit. And the combat power Lin Sun showed also shocked them. Even a boundless realm existence like Xian Kettle could compete with the top powerful figures of other civilizations in the world of Life Lotus. But Lin Sun managed to block Kettle's deadly strike. Even Fu Nanli and Ren Futian were shocked at this moment. For Lin Sun, killing Xian Kettle made him feel great. Even though this sword had used up most of his cultivation, he had still destroyed the heart kettle. He had finally avenged his eldest senior brother. Senior, how are your injuries? Lin Sun looked at Travel Sword Gorge in the distance. If Travel Sword Gorge hadn't gone all out and blocked most of the power of the Golden Buddhist Commandment Blade, it would have been difficult for him to block Xian Kettle's power with his sword just now. At this time, Travel Sword Gorge was obviously seriously injured, and his face was extremely pale. It's just a minor injury. It won't affect the battle. Travel Sword Gorge took a deep breath and laughed out loud. He looked very embarrassed, but his elegance did not diminish at all. Kill! The next moment, Travel Sword Gorge and Lin Sun simultaneously attacked Lei Song, who was fighting fiercely with Fu Nanli. Lei Song's combat power was not weaker than Xian Kettle's, but he was entangled by Fu Nanli and failed many times in his attempts to escape. When he saw Xian Kettle's tragic death, his state of mind was also impacted. Under such circumstances, Lin Sun and Travel Sword Gorge joined hands to attack, which directly made Lei Song's situation even more unbearable and embarrassing. In the end, he was desperate to fight with his life. Unfortunately, he was different from Xian Kettle. He was facing Fu Nanli, Travel Sword Gorge, and Lin Sun. Even if he fought with his life, he was forcibly suppressed and could not change his situation at all. In merely a moment, Lei Song was killed on the spot. With Travel Sword Gorge and Lin Sun holding him back, Fu Nanli's flying sword took the opportunity to enter and directly minced Lei Song's Dao body into pieces. His primordial spirit was crushed into powder and completely disappeared from the world. Then, Lin Sun and the others turned to look at Ren Futian. However, before they could help, Yi Ju, who had been seriously injured in the previous battle, was killed by Ren Futian's halberd. At this point, Heartpot and the rest of the 6 greater boundless realm existences were completely annihilated. Among them, Zijuwuji, Songlong Yu and Panwu Fuxing were killed by Lin Sun. Heartpot was killed by Lin Sun and Sword Gorge. Lei Song was killed by Lin Sun, Sword Gorge and Fu Nanli together. The only thing that Lin Sun didn't contribute was the battle to kill Yi Ju. Even so, everyone in the Travel Sword Gorge knew very well who the key to this battle was. In the past, I never thought that I would be able to personally send off Xian Hu and those old fellows in the Lingwu realm. Travel Sword Gorge sighed. Mountains and rivers withered, all living things turned to ashes, and the nearby territories collapsed like dried-up and barren ruins. Gusts of wind blew, and the air was still mixed with the horrifying smell of gunpowder. Only the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain stood tall, protected by layers of divine order, undamaged. In the past, we were like trapped beasts in a precarious situation. Who would have thought that from today on, there would be no one in the Lingwu realm who could fight against us? Fu Nanli smiled, but he also sighed. What sort of humiliation had they suffered in the past? Now, the humiliation had been completely washed away, and it was finally time for them to hold their heads high. All this is thanks to our young friend Lin Sun, Ren Futian smiled. Ren Futian said with a smile, in the past years, there were many people who could turn the tide in a dangerous situation. But there are very few people like you who can turn the world around with their own strength. This was already a great compliment. Not bad, not bad. Travel Sword Gorge and Fu Nanli nodded in unison. Since Lin Sun appeared, they first had the opportunity to kill Xian Ing, Wenzai, Xing Tianyuan, Wu Hongzi, and others, and annihilate the enemy camp one by one. Then, they even killed Xian Hu and other remaining boundless realm existences in front of the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain today. It could be said that without Lin Sun, all this would be impossible. In the face of such praise, Lin Sun couldn't help but smile bitterly. Seniors, should we go back to recuperate? Everyone was stunned and couldn't help but laugh. In the distance, on the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain, Gu Yueshing, Xuanhui Jia Xie, and others had already come out with the descendants of Yuan Church, Spirit Church, and Fangsuan Mountain to welcome them. Everyone's expression was filled with joy from the bottom of their hearts. On the same day, a banquet was set up on the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain. Everyone drank to their heart's content, feeling unprecedentedly relaxed and happy. And Lin Sun undoubtedly became the one who attracted the most attention. Of course, he was also the one who drank the most. The lively banquet lasted until late at night. Lin Sun, Xinjiang Gorge, and Fu Nanli all began to recuperate in seclusion. In this battle, not only Lin Sun, but Xinjiang Gorge and Fu Nanli were also injured, especially Xinjiang Gorge, who was seriously injured. 3 months later, after the discussion between Lin Sun, Xinjiang Gorge, and Fu Nanli, they immediately left with everyone in the Lotus Leaf Divine Mountain and went to the place closest to the Sea of Destiny. That was the place where the Witch Church and Zen Church originally occupied. In that area they could refine the most life force of the Great Way. When the next Great Way Life Lotus appeared, they would be able to enter it in the shortest time. And the position of Ask Zen Mountain, which was originally occupied by Zen Church, was undoubtedly the most superior. However, when Lin Sun and the others moved here, they changed the name of the mountain to Ask Zen Mountain. After settling down in the new territory, Xinjiang Gorge sent the powerhouses of Yuan Church to announce what had happened during this period of time to the world. Immediately, the whole spiritual martial realm was stirred up and caused a great uproar. Lin Sun alone changed the situation of the spiritual martial realm? I didn't expect this, I really didn't expect this. I'm afraid there are only a few people like Lin Sun in all the eras. No matter what, with the destruction of the Witch Church, Zen Church, and the other major eternal God forces, we finally have a chance to enter the core area. Speaking of which, we all have to thank Lin Sun. If not for his appearance, I'm afraid we wouldn't have had any chance to enter the core area before the calamity of the era. Countless eternal God figures were excited and overjoyed, because when the news spread, Yuan Church had already announced that they would allow cultivators who had been mingling in the periphery to enter the core area. Who wouldn't be excited? And in their hearts, they were all extremely grateful to Lin Sun. Everyone knew that if it wasn't for Lin Sun, they definitely wouldn't have waited for such a chance. While the outside world was in an uproar. In a cave residence on Ask Zen Mountain, Lin Sun meditated quietly. In his palm, a Great Way Life Pearl released a tide of life force of the Great Way, which was absorbed and refined by him without leaving a single drop. Those hostile forces had been wiped out. And now, there were only 3 things in front of Lin Sun. The first was to prove the boundless realm. The second was to wait for the Great Way Life Lotus to appear and fight for the opportunity to head to the ruins of Myriad Tao. The third was to save eldest senior brother before heading to the ruins of Myriad Tao. Proving the boundless realm required an opportunity that came from oneself, and after the intense battle with Xin Hu and the other boundless realm figures, Lin Sun acutely sensed a trace of an omen. Only by accumulating it to the extreme could it be released to the extreme. And only after releasing it to the extreme could it allow one's strength to undergo minute changes amidst the tempering of life and death. It was like a treasured sword that needed to be tempered thousands of times in a furnace before it could be forged into a peerless edge. To the current Lin Sun, only continuous battles could allow him to have the opportunity to prove the boundless realm. And in the current spirit martial world, there wasn't anyone that could be a match for him since a long time ago. This also meant that if he wanted to fight, then he had to wait for the Great Way Life Lotus to appear, and then head to the world of the Great Way Life Lotus to fight the great figures of the other eras. And this was what Lin Sun looked forward to the most now. As for heading to the ruins of Myriad Tao, it was secondary. Because in the next 800 years, there would be many opportunities for the Great Way Life Lotus to appear. Before leaving, Lin Sun would do his best to revive eldest senior brother. 3 years later, In the cave abode, Lin Sun had a rare moment of leisure. He personally cooked a table of delicacies and chatted with Xia Ji as they ate. 2 years ago, Xia Ji woke up from the Ark of Eternity. Since then, Xia Ji had been accompanying Lin Sun. "How is it?" Lin Sun casually asked as he picked food for Xia Ji. Xia Ji ate as she said vaguely, "Although the Great Way Life Lotus is extraordinary, it's only helpful to my cultivation. The amount of destiny law power that can be absorbed and refined is too little. It's not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth." Lin Sun pondered and said, "Looks like I have to wait for the Great Way Life Lotus to appear before trying again." 2 years ago, after Xia Ji woke up, Lin Sun handed a Great Way Life Pearl to her. In his opinion, Xia Ji grasped the power of destiny, and this Great Way Life Pearl should have a miraculous effect on her cultivation. Who would have thought that after Xia Ji refined it? She shook her head and expressed that the destiny law contained in the Great Way Life Pearl was too little, and it didn't have many miraculous effects. Lin Sun didn't believe that. In these 2 years, he collected many Great Way Life Pearls and gave them to Xia Ji. But now, after hearing what Xia Ji said, Lin Sun completely gave up. Clearly, whether it was for other cultivators or for Xia Ji, the Great Way Life Pearl was only extremely beneficial to cultivation. It played an extremely small role in comprehending the destiny law. The two were eating and chatting when suddenly, the cave abode shook violently. At the same time, Lin Sun felt a shocking aura of the eternal tribulation. Who is attracting the eternal tribulation at this time? Lin Sun immediately got up and walked out of the cave abode. Xia Ji followed closely behind. In the sky, the mighty river of destiny surged and flowed. At this moment, a thick tribulation cloud appeared in the sky above Tao-seeking God Mountain. The aura of the tribulation caused the sky to dim, as if it had fallen into an inky night. A figure stood in the void, looking up at the sky. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he looked proud. More updates. Chapter 3185. It turned out to be senior sister Juanhuan. Lin Sun was surprised, and then he smiled from the bottom of his heart. The figure was slender and graceful. She was dressed as a man, but her elegance was not inferior to that of a good man in the world. Especially her appearance, which was extremely beautiful. Who else could it be but Juanhuan? At this time, many people on the Immortal Mountain were alarmed and looked up. I didn't expect that the first one to prove the Eternal Realm is not fifth senior brother Qi Jun and the others, but junior sister Juanhuan. Li Xian sighed. "Why do you look down on me so much?" In the void, Juanhuan bowed her head slightly and glared at Li Xian. While speaking, she was suddenly stunned. Her phoenix eyes widened, and a touch of disbelief appeared on her beautiful face. Junior brother? 3 years ago, Sword Canyon refined the entire Lotus Leaf Mountain and settled on the Immortal Mountain, but it did not alarm those who were in closed-door training. So Juanhuan did not notice Lin Sun until now, when she came out of closed-door training and planned to prove her Tao. "Senior sister, don't be distracted. Prove your Tao first." Lin Sun smiled and waved his hand. Juanhuan rolled her eyes. "Do I need you to remind me?" Juanhuan, junior brother, is now at the perfected stage of the creation realm. He can really control you now. Li Xian laughed loudly. Juanhuan was stunned. She stared at Lin Sun for a while, and suddenly showed a soul-stirring bright smile. "After I prove my Tao, I have to get close to junior brother." As she said, she looked at the sky again. With the great calamity coming, she did not dare to be distracted. It didn't take long for Juanhuan's eternal tribulation to arrive. 6 hours later, without any accident, Juanhuan broke through the calamity and proved her Tao. This was, of course, a rare joyous occasion. In the eternal world, because of the arrival of the calamity, there was no opportunity to prove the eternal Tao. It was not easy for Juanhuan to prove her Tao here. Among the descendants of Fang Siyuan, except for eldest senior brother, third senior sister, and Lin Sun, the other descendants of Fang Siyuan had not proved their Tao. Now, Jun Huan became the fourth descendant of Fang Siyuan to prove her Tao. Perhaps, compared to this world's creation realm and boundless realm existences, a character like Jun Huan who had just affirmed his Tao and surpassed the realm of rules was not considered much. But after all, amongst the myriad of living beings in the world, only a small group of people were able to step foot onto the eternal path towards the Tao. Lin Sun had been fighting in the world for many years, breaking through the ninth heaven and the ruins of fortune. Although he had encountered many eternal realm experts, compared to the hundreds of millions of cultivators in the world, they were extremely rare. On that day, a banquet was held on Tao-seeking Divine Mountain to celebrate Jun Huan's birthday. However, no one knew that Jun Huan's eternal realm was just the beginning. In the following 10 years, Fang Siyuan's successor would attain eternity at practically regular intervals, such as Qi Jun, Bo Xuanzi, Li Xianwei, Pu Zhen, Shuiya, all of them succeeded in proving their Tao. Those scenes had shocked the old fellows of the Yuan Church and Spirit Church over the past 10 years. They were clearly aware that every single one of Fang Siyuan's successors was a heaven-defying figure, and every single one of them possessed extraordinary natural talent and resources. If it weren't for the fact that they were in a dangerous situation in the past and were suppressed too severely, they would have had the ability to attain eternity a long time ago. Of course, if that was all, it wouldn't have shocked those old fellows. The key was that none of the successors of Fang Siyuan who had attained eternity had failed. Moreover, after stepping into the transcendent realm, they displayed tyrannical combat power far beyond those in the same realm. This was the most surprising part, and for Lin Sun, these were great news. In his heart, it was a matter of course that those senior brothers and sisters could attain eternity. It was not a surprise at all. Every time a senior brother or sister succeeded in proving the Tao, Lin Sun would give them a generous gift, all of which were heavenly treasures that were greatly beneficial to the cultivation of eternal realm experts. This was also Lin Sun's kind intention. Over the years, he had killed countless eternal figures and accumulated unimaginable wealth. Coupled with the profound meaning of the 5 sequences of the ultimate ruins, he could also obtain many eternal treasures that others could not obtain. And most of these riches were not of much use to him, who had perfected the creation realm. Therefore, Lin Sun gave them to his senior brothers and sisters. It was also because of this that the other successors of Fang Siyuan saw their little junior brother's wealth. Originally, they felt ashamed and embarrassed to accept it. Later on, they all accepted it with a smile, and even went to find Lin Sun immediately when they lacked any cultivation resources. Lin Sun was naturally happy to act as the boy of wealth for his senior brothers and sisters. In short, as long as he could help his senior brothers and sisters, he would be very happy. It should be known that when he was still weak, he didn't have the ability to help even if he wanted to. In these 10 years, Lin Sun also saw Tai Xian and Yan Ji, who had come out of seclusion. Both of them had now attained the creation realm. But in terms of cultivation, Lin Sun had far surpassed them. When they met Lin Sun, Tai Xian and Yan Ji also sighed with emotion. Especially when they learned of the series of things that Lin Sun had done after arriving in the spiritual martial realm, they were even more shocked. Who dared to imagine that in just a few hundred years, Lin Sun, who had entered the Yuan sect to cultivate, now had the power to kill the existences in the boundless realm. In short, these 10 years were peaceful and fulfilling for Lin Sun, with continuous good news. In these 10 years, the whole spiritual martial realm was also calm and peaceful. The practitioners distributed in other areas of the core area were all refining the life force of the Tao with all their strength. They had no intention of fighting and killing at all. The only thing that troubled Lin Sun was that in these years, his 5 Tao bodies had been reshaping the vitality of the eldest senior brother with the Nirvana ultimacy, but the progress was extremely slow. Until now, the eldest senior brother's vitality was so strong that it could be compared to the eternal realm of rules, but it could not really realize a nirvana from death to life. Fortunately, what comforted Lin Sun was that although the eldest senior brother had not really come back to life, his vitality was growing step by step. Such a change was at least a kind of hope. Another 5 years passed in a hurry. On this day, Lin Sun, who was in closed-door cultivation, was suddenly awakened by a roar. When he walked out of the cave residence, he saw that above the sky, the mighty sea of fate across the void. At this moment, there was a violent change at this moment. The sea water was tumbling, setting off stormy waves. Is the fifth Tao Life Lotus going to appear? Lin Sun's eyes lit up, and his heart was excited. All these years, he had been waiting for such an opportunity to appear. This time, after 18 years, the Sea of Fate once again gives birth to such an opportunity, and this time, it's finally our turn to play. There was a burst of laughter in the distance. Then he saw the figures of Xinjiang Gorge, Fu Nanli, Ren Futian, and other big shots appear, all with joy, complacency, and heroic spirit. Zhang. Lin Sun immediately flew over. My young friend, this time, how about acting according to the plan we made before? Xinjiang Gorge asked with a smile. Okay. Lin Sun nodded in agreement. When they moved to this holy mountain, he had discussed with Xinjiang Gorge and others about going to the Tao Life Lotus to fight. The plan was very simple. When the world of the Tao Life Lotus appeared, Xinjiang Gorge, Fu Nanli, and Lin Sun would bring Gu Yuesheng, Shui Yi, and Shun Huaijia, 3 lesser boundless realm cultivators to fight. Ren Futian, a greater boundless realm cultivator, would oversee the holy mountain. Although they had no opponents in the current spirit martial world, it was better to be safe than sorry. Only with Ren Futian overseeing would they be completely at ease. Regarding this matter, Lin Sun had talked to second senior brother Zhong Qiu, third senior sister Ruo Su, and the others, and asked for their opinion. If these senior brothers and sisters also yearned to go to the ruins of wonderful Tao, Lin Sun would naturally do his best to fight for an opportunity for them. However, Zhong Qiu, Ruo Su, and the others all refused. They were only at the exceeding law realm. The reason why they came to Kunlun ruins back then was to prove their Tao eternity, and they had never thought of going to the ruins of wonderful Tao. Moreover, they found out from Lin Sun that the ruins of wonderful Tao was extremely dangerous as well. Even a greater boundless realm cultivator like Ying Shanying had almost suffered calamity many times. Even if he survived in the end, he'd even become an emissary of destiny that served the mastermind behind the scenes. Under such circumstances, even if they had the chance to head to the ruins of wonderful Tao, they were bound to encounter all sorts of unimaginable dangers and mishaps with their cultivation. Instead of that, it was better to stay in the ocean of destiny. Firstly, they wouldn't have to fear the threat of the Great Silence lifespan tribulation. Secondly, they could cultivate in peace and improve their cultivation. Even if the calamity of an era descended and destroyed this era, they who hid in the ocean of destiny wouldn't suffer any mishaps. In the end, they were restricted by their own cultivation, so they weren't interested in heading to the ruins of wonderful Tao at all. Rumble. The changes in the ocean of destiny grew even more intense. Waves surged violently into the sky, and all the cultivators in the spirit martial world and the other eras had been alarmed since a long time ago. In next to no time, under the gazes of countless blazing gazes, an extremely enormous lotus flower surged into appearance within the ocean of destiny. It had a total of 9 petals, and every single petal was large like a mountain and emanated a gorgeous and resplendent glow. When this lotus appeared, the roiling and extremely violent ocean of destiny instantly became calm and tranquil, and it created a strong contrast to the others. This was the Grand Tao Lotus. It contained the critical factor to arrive at the ruins of wonderful Tao, and it was a supreme fortune that every eternal realm cultivator of every single era dreamt of. Lin Sun had seen these familiar scenes all those years ago. But when he saw it again at this moment, his heart still surged without end, and the battle intent that had been silent for many years in his heart seemed to have been awakened. He needed to fight, and he needed to temper and release his strength to the extreme over and over again. Only in this way would he be able to attain the boundless realm as soon as possible. Young brother Lin, we should set out. All right. Xinjiang Gorge, Fu Nanli, and the others who'd been accumulating strength since long ago directly teleported through space with Lin Sun and flashed towards the ocean of destiny. They only had 10 breaths of time to enter the world of the Grand Tao Lotus. They had to arrive there before 10 breaths of time, because only in this way would they have the opportunity to seize the critical factor to head to the ruins of wonderful Tao within the world of the Grand Tao Lotus. More updates for you. Chapter 3186. After the great Tao Lotus appeared, the Sea of Destiny became calm. Then, figures appeared out of nowhere in the Sea of Destiny. There were men and women, young and old. Every one of their auras was terrifying. They stepped on the currents of destiny and shot towards the great Tao Lotus like rainbows tearing through time and space. The struggle for the great Tao is about ruthlessness. This time I will not show mercy, said an elder in black robes. He stood on a painting of the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. An azure canopy floated above his head, and lightning crackled in his eyes. Every breath he took resonated with the Tao. His entire person was like an eternal, venerable emperor. The elder's appearance made many people's eyes narrow. Jiang Yenshui, a boundless cultivator from the era of the gods, a supreme figure who had survived 7 great silence, lifeless tribulations. Among the various epochs included in the Sea of Destiny, Jiang Yenshui was also an extraordinary powerhouse. What a joke! When did you, monster Jiang, show mercy when fighting for the life-soul altar? But in the end, there were always winners and losers. Suddenly, a fiery red figure appeared. It was a woman in a red dress that was charming like fire, and she was beautiful like a young woman. She rode on a golden divine flying beast, and she was dazzling. Su Wanjun. Another wave of restlessness swept through the crowd. Many old antiques revealed deep wariness. This was a demoness who had dominated many eras. She killed people like flies and possessed terrifying combat ability. Jiang Yenshui glanced at Su Wanjun and sneered. He stepped into the great Tao Lotus. Soon after, Su Wanjun also disappeared into the Tao Life Lotus on the Divine Bird. After all, they only had 10 breaths of time. Before entering the great Tao Lotus, no one would choose to fight in the Sea of Destiny even if there was a blood feud. Rainbows fell like rain as more and more figures rushed into the great Tao Lotus. There were some who were no weaker than Jiang Yenshui and Su Wanjun. Why did a group of strangers come to the martial spirit realm? A surprised voice sounded. Someone sensed the appearance of Lin Sun's group. So it's the Yuan School's Travel Sword Gorge and the Spirit School's Fu Nanli. So the old guys from the Shaman School and Zen School decided not to participate in this fight? Someone recognized the identity of the people from the Travel Sword Gorge and couldn't help but reveal a thoughtful expression. In the last battle for the Great Tao Life Lotus, Xin, Hu, Lei Song, and the others obtained the final victory and sent Ji Tianqing and the others away. This matter was seen by the great figures of the other epochs. However, when they saw the appearance of Travel Sword Gorge, they realized that the situation was different. Oh, you've even brought a creation stage. Are you planning to use him as bait and send him to his death? Someone noticed Lin Sun and couldn't help asking in astonishment. Creation Realm. Many old fellows from other eras who noticed this scene couldn't help but smile. However, their smiles were filled with amusement. If it was any other existence in the creation realm, they would have felt uncomfortable being stared at by so many terrifying figures. But Lin Sun just smiled, his heart full of expectation. Sure enough, in the current world, only in this life Lotus world could one see worthy characters. Like these old fellows, most of them had boundless realm cultivation. How could Lin not look forward to it? Little friend Lin, let's go. Without any delay, they headed towards the Sword Gorge with Lin Sun. They flew into the Tao Fate Lotus, and soon their figures disappeared. 10 breaths passed quickly. The 9 petals of the Life Lotus, which were as huge as mountains, were folded together and quietly floated in the Sea of Destiny. This also meant that the 5th Life Lotus world had begun. Whoever won in the end would have the opportunity to go to the ruins of Wonders of Tao. There are 281 strong cultivators participating in this time's Life Lotus world, which is 20 more than the last time. Ren Futian, who had stayed behind to oversee the Life Lotus world, said in a low voice at the peak of Tao seeking Divine Mountain. Although Xin Hu and the others won in the last Life Lotus world, they also lost a boundless realm cultivator. This time, the strength that the seniors of Travel Sword Gorge and the others possess is even weaker than Xin Hu and the others. Under such circumstances, it won't be easy to win. Zhong Qiu said with a frown. Ren Futian said softly, as long as you live, even if you fail this time, there will be another chance. The goal of old monster Xing and the others this time isn't to fight for the opportunity. They just want to bring Lin Sun there and familiarize him with the situation in the Life Lotus world. Everyone nodded in agreement. The Life Lotus world. In the ancient and primitive world, there were mountains and mountains, vast and boundless. Being in it, it was like going back to the beginning of chaos. The sky was high, the earth was high, and everything was born. Everything glowed with the most primitive aura. In the void, there was a strong fluctuation of vitality. Every grass and every tree here was full of spirituality, surging with vitality, and branded with the most ancient traces of the great Tao. With a wave of void fluctuation, Lin Sun's figure appeared out of thin air. Looking around for a moment, Lin Sun couldn't help but be amazed. In the eyes of an eternal realm cultivator like him, the power of rules in this world was extremely mysterious and strong enough to withstand the battle of a boundless realm cultivator. Even when he breathed, he could feel the life force of the great Tao blowing on his face. Most importantly, Lin Sun sensed that the power of rules in the Life Lotus world was the true fate rule, a supreme forbidden great Tao. Xia Ji, come and feel it. Lin Sun's mind moved, and Xia Ji's slender figure appeared out of thin air. It is indeed the fate rule. Xia Ji's clear eyes looked towards the sky, and they were suffused with bright splendor. And it is the most complete fate rule. As she spoke, she stretched out her slender and fair right hand, and her palm was raised towards the sky. In next to no time, strands of crystalline and illusory threads descended from the sky, and they floated down onto the striations on her palm. Instantly, in Lin Sun's eyes, Xia Ji's fair right hand was enveloped by a dazzling and ethereal light, and circles of obscure great Tao fluctuation appeared. That was the power of the fate rule, and it was extremely pure. Xia Ji's beautiful face was filled with joy from the bottom of her heart. Lin Sun, I can feel that the sealed power in my body is being awakened little by little. If it goes on like this, my strength will improve by leaps and bounds. Lin Sun was shocked. Sure enough, the great Tao Fate Pearl might be useless to Xia Ji, but the Life Lotus world was a blessed land for her to achieve a breakthrough. In the Ji clan of the Ruins of Fortune in the Era of Gods, Xia Ji once used the forbidden magic Calamity of Dust to kill Ji Chaoyin, who was at the late stage of Creation Realm. It was also at that time that Lin Sun knew that Xia Ji's real combat power was comparable to his at the peak of Regularity Realm at that time. But now it was different. Lin Sun was already at the peak of Creation Realm, and he had experienced the 9 Tao tribulations in the River of Epoch. He had already embarked on a supreme path that transcended the change of epochs, and he could even kill greater boundless realm cultivators like Ziju Wuji and Panwu Fusheng. Even greater boundless realm cultivators like Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli couldn't suppress Lin Sun in a one-on-one situation. Xia Ji's current strength was only equivalent to the late stage of Creation Realm. Of course, if she used the forbidden magic Calamity of Dust, she could easily defeat all opponents in the creation realm. However, Lin soon knew that Xia Ji hadn't completely refined the power sealed by the Eternal Night Divine Emperor. Otherwise, her combat power would be far more than that. It should be noted that the Eternal Night Divine Emperor had been bombarded by the Primordial Bell, which was a fatal tribulation that only greater boundless realm cultivators who had encountered the ninth Great Silence lifeless tribulation would encounter. This also meant that the Eternal Night Divine Emperor was a well-deserved greater boundless realm cultivator, and even the ninth Great Silence lifeless tribulation didn't completely kill him. Instead, he reincarnated and cultivated again, leaving the foundation of his rise to power in the reincarnated Xia Ji. This was also the reason why Xia Ji could improve her combat power without cultivating. She only needed to refine the power that belonged to the Eternal Night Divine Emperor bit by bit in her body to realize the continuous improvement of her strength. And now, for Xia Ji, the rule of fate, covered by the Life Lotus world, could help her refine the sealed power in her body in the shortest time possible. Let's go meet with Senior Xingjian Gorge and the others first. Lin soon thought about it and made a decision. This was the Life Spirit world, the battlefield where the top figures of each era fought. Danger could happen at any time. Only by joining with Xingjian Gorge and the others could they form a force that could threaten their opponent. In this way, Xia Ji could have the opportunity to concentrate on cultivating in this world. Xia Ji nodded. However, when she just withdrew her right hand in the void, suddenly, a surprised voice sounded in the distance. This little girl can sense and absorb the power of the rule of fate? As soon as the voice sounded, the void trembled, and a golden bird appeared out of thin air. On the back of the bird sat a woman in a red dress. She was as delicate as fire, with snow-white skin, and was as beautiful as a young girl. Su Wanjun. Lin soon narrowed his eyes and quietly protected Xia Ji behind him. Before entering the Life Lotus world, he had heard the voice of Xingjian Gorge talking about Su Wanjun, the woman in red dress. She was temperamental and murderous, and was regarded as a she-devil by many greater boundless realm cultivators. She was extremely famous in the Sea of Fate. It was said that with her strength, she had the ability to seize a chance to go to the ruins of Tao a long time ago. But it was strange that she gave up such opportunities again and again. No one knew why she did so. But now, Su Wanjun appeared out of thin air on the bird, staring at Xia Ji with a pair of beautiful eyes. Obviously, the scene when Xia Ji sensed the rule of fate just now was noticed by this she-devil, who looked like a delicate girl. This made Lin soon speechless. It was really bad luck for him to meet such a tough guy when he just entered the Life Lotus world. However, Lin soon didn't panic. With his current combat capability, he was not afraid to fight with such a notorious and murderous she-devil. Chapter 3187. Su Wanjun glanced at Lin Sun and said, "If I want to kill someone, I don't need to talk nonsense. It's useless for you to be on guard." Her voice was gentle and clear. However, his tone was extremely domineering. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Then why are you here?" Looking at Xia Ji behind Lin Sun, Su Wanjun said, "I'm here for her. If you can step aside and let me have a good chat with her, you don't have to worry about me." Lin Sun said indifferently, "What if I don't?" Su Wanjun frowned slightly, and a trace of displeasure appeared in her beautiful eyes. Boom! The golden flying beast she sat on seemed to have sensed its master's state of mind, and its bright golden wings rose up like a pair of blades, giving rise to a terrifying radiance of the Tao. Its aura was actually not inferior to a minor boundless realm figure. In the blink of an eye, the nearby space was filled with terrifying cold killing intent. If it were any other person in the creation realm, he would have been shocked by the power of this divine bird, but Lin Sun didn't even bother to look at it, looking calm. "Enough, stop trying to scare people. This little fellow is not an ordinary person." Su Wanjun patted the golden divine bird, and it immediately retracted its wings and settled down. Su Wanjun looked at Lin Sun again. I'll help you get an opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao. How about letting the little girl next to you lend me some time? Don't worry, I won't hurt her, and I'll even give her an unexpected fortune. Lin Sun became more confused and asked, why? It was rumored that Su Wanjun was temperamental and killed people like flies. She was a demoness that made people pale at the mention of her name. Originally, Lin Sun thought that they would fight at the slightest disagreement. However, from the looks of it now, he was clearly different from the rumors. Su Wanjun thought for a moment and didn't hide it. To comprehend the destiny law. I've been waiting in the sea of destiny for 13 eras. Whenever the calamity of an era arrives, as long as the Tao Life Lotus appears, I'll definitely enter this place. Many people wonder why I didn't head to the ruins of Tao. The reason is very simple. I'm different from the others. I only want to comprehend the most taboo supreme great Tao in the Kunlun ruins origin energy, destiny. When she spoke up to hear, a rare trace of disappointment appeared on her beautiful face. But Lin Sun couldn't help feeling shocked. In order to comprehend the laws of fate, he actually stayed here for 13 eras? This woman's obsession was too terrifying. An epoch lasted for millions of years. Even if one was an eternal realm expert, who would spend an epoch to comprehend a supreme Tao? But Su Wanjun spent 13 epochs for it. This was undoubtedly too shocking. Without stubbornness, one would not be able to accomplish anything. However, if one was too stubborn, it was extremely easy for one to go berserk. Lin Sun was not sure whether a person like Su Wanjun had become obsessed with this matter. But it's been 13 eras, and I've only comprehended a tiny bit of it. Su Wanjun sighed lightly. I still remember that a swordsman once warned me to abandon my obsession with comprehending the laws of destiny. Otherwise, I would be trapped here for the rest of my life. Originally, I thought that swordsman was right. But now, it seems that he did not expect that I would have such an opportunity today. She suddenly smiled. It was a smile of joy that came from the bottom of her heart. Do you understand now? Su Wanjun said. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, I'm afraid I can't help you with this matter. It's not that I don't agree, but do you think that you can also master the laws of fate that others have mastered? If so, why do all the cultivators in this world pursue different paths? Su Wanjun said indifferently, Young man, you don't understand. I don't understand. All I need to know is how she comprehended the destiny law. She was born. Lin Sun answered without thinking. Su Wanjun was stunned. Born? Yes. Lin Sun nodded. You are not lying to me? Su Wanjun's mood was obviously a little off. Lin Sun said, I can swear on my Taoist heart. How is it possible? Su Wanjun was absent-minded. Her proud and delicate body trembled slightly like a young girl. The laws of fate that she had painstakingly sought for 13 epochs were a power that others were born to master. 13 epochs. Those lost years couldn't be said to be very important, but in those countless years, she had missed the most important person in her life. She didn't know how many days and nights she would think of the swordsman's words before he left. Wanjun, I'll wait for you at the ruins of Tao. You must come. It had been 13 epochs since they parted. That swordsman, would he still be waiting for her? Every time she thought of this, Su Wanjun's determination would waver. She would hesitate, feel sad, and regret, but in the end she still persisted. She would do what he said she couldn't do. She just wanted to prove it to him. But was the price she paid really worth it? If she hadn't met Xia Ji, Su Wanjun wouldn't have been so joyful and sorrowful, and she wouldn't have lost control like this. For a person like her, she had already experienced the ups and downs of the world and seen all the scenes in the world. Her Taoist heart had been tempered and was boundlessly tenacious. But because she cared too much about that person and was too obsessed with seeking the laws of fate, At this moment, she was like a camel that couldn't bear the last straw and lost control of her emotions. "Are you still waiting for me? Are you still there?" Suddenly, Su Wanjun was stunned, and 2 lines of clear tears slid down her snow-white and beautiful cheeks. "Your heart knows my heart, but my heart doesn't know your meaning. Enter the gate of my lovesickness, and know the bitterness of my lovesickness. Longing for each other, longing for each other, longing for each other is endless." She was out of her wits. She urged the golden bird to turn around and leave. The sorrowful and desolate voice was still echoing in the void, and her figure had disappeared. It came so suddenly. But when she left, she was in a daze. Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. He could feel Su Wanjuan's uncontrollable sadness. However, he didn't expect that such a demoness, who made other boundless realm existences afraid, would be so sad. Maybe there's something sad in her heart that can't be resolved? Lin Sun shook his head and stopped thinking about it. She's trapped by love. Suddenly, Xia Ji said in a voice like the sound of nature, "If I can, I really want to help her." There was a subtle emotion on her beautiful little face. She raised her head and looked at Lin Sun seriously. "Lin Sun, if one day you disappear, I will always wait for you. What about you?" Lin Sun rubbed her head with a smile and said, "Me too." Xia Ji immediately smiled brightly. Let's go and meet with the seniors of Xinjiang Gorge first." A jade talisman appeared in Lin Sun's palm. Sensing the fluctuation of the jade talisman, he left with Xia Ji. This jade talisman could sense the breath of Xinjiang Gorge and the others. Similar jade talismans were worn by Xinjiang Gorge, Fu Nanli, Gu Yushi, Shun, and the others. Huai Jia and Shui Yi each wore one. In this way, they could meet up immediately after entering the world of life lotus. After all, it was said that this world was extremely big, enough for a boundless realm cultivator to move for 3 days and 3 nights. And it should be known that in the 9th heaven of the eternal world, with the pace of a boundless realm cultivator, it only needed 1 day to cross the 9th heaven. Oh, it's that young man in the creation realm from the spiritual martial realm. Along the way, Lin Sun could not avoid running into some terrifying presences. They were all almighties from other eras scattered in the world of life lotus. But without exception, none of them attacked Lin Sun. It was not that they did not dare to, but they were too lazy to deal with such a small fry. If there was no enmity between them, why would they kill him? In other words, no one treated a creation realm cultivator like Lin Sun as a competitor. They might have noticed his existence, but they soon ignored him. To them, it was like an ant rushing into a group of crocodiles. Who would care? Lin Sun was speechless when he was treated this way, and he also felt very disappointed. It was not because he was being looked down upon, but because he had come to the world of life lotus to fight. He thought that he could go through many bloody battles to temper himself and fight against strong opponents, but who would have thought that no one would care about him? This made Lin Sun too embarrassed to take the initiative to ask for a fight. If there was no enmity between them, he really could not do it. Moreover, even if he challenged them, he was afraid that it would be regarded as courting death. In this case, if he won, it would be very easy to offend people. Think about it, if they were defeated by a young man in the creation realm like him, how could those old guys who had lived for countless years bear it? However, just when Lin Sun thought that he would be ignored along the way, trouble still came. This was a vast plain with lush vegetation. When Lin Sun walked in it, he was suddenly stopped by a terrifying figure, which made Lin Sun refreshed, and he said, "What do you mean?" It was a man in a purple robe with a jade-like face. His figure was surrounded by dazzling red divine chains of rules, and his eyes were indifferent and cold. He exuded a terrifying aura of the boundless realm. At this time, he put his hands behind his back, and his eyes were like a ruler looking down at an ant, and he said, "Young man, are you from the spiritual martial realm?" That gaze made Lin Sun very uncomfortable, but he was more and more happy in his heart. He felt that this man in a purple robe carried hostility, and now, he was worried that there was no battle. Yes, Lin Sun said without hesitation. The man in a purple robe said coldly, I disdain to fight a small character like you. Otherwise, if other people know it, they will laugh at me. But I have no choice. Who asked you to come from the same place as Heartpot and Lei Song? His tone became cold. Now, you come with me obediently. I promise that as long as you cooperate, I won't hurt your life. Otherwise, don't blame me for taking you down. Lin Sun looked stunned and said, You stopped me to take revenge on Heartpot and Lei Song? A touch of hatred appeared in the eyes of the man in a purple robe, and he said, Yes, when I was fighting in the World of Life Lotus last time, Heartpot and Lei Song joined hands to attack me, which almost made me die. How can I not take revenge? After hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but twitch his mouth. It turned out that he was the scapegoat for Heartpot and Lei Song. There will be more updates in the evening. The point was that the swordsman Su Wanjun mentioned was an important character in the plot. Chapter 3188. All of a sudden, the fighting spirit in Lin Sun's heart dissipated. He didn't want to fight with the enemies of Heartpot and Lei Song. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun said seriously, Taoism Peer, you misunderstood. Heartpot and I are also enemies, and I killed Heartpot with my own hand. You killed Heartpot? The purple-robed man sneered. Young man, although your words make me very happy, do you think you can deceive me with such a small trick? In his opinion, Lin Sun said so to protect himself. However, it would be a big joke if a creation realm existence could kill a boundless realm existence like Heartpot. The purple-robed man was even a little angry. He felt that the way Lin Sun deceived him was too perfunctory and completely insulted his intelligence. Seeing this, Lin Sun was speechless again and had to say patiently, There was another senior who helped me with the killing pot, but I can guarantee— The purple-robed man interrupted, You still want to deceive me? Do you really think I'm so easy to deceive? He became angrier and looked at Lin Sun with cold eyes. This kid really thought he was an idiot. Lin Sun held his forehead with his hand and sighed in his heart. What else could he say? Forget it, if we don't get along, I'll say no more. Goodbye. Lin Sun turned around and left. Ha ha. Seeing Lin Sun's attitude, the purple-robed man couldn't help laughing out of extreme anger. You failed to deceive me, and now you still want to escape? You don't take me seriously at all. As he spoke, he suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed at Lin Sun. Boom! The red divine light of rules emerged and turned into a giant flaming hand with terrifying power. When it covered down, the nearby void seemed to be smelted with a terrifying aura. It seemed that such a blow could easily capture a lesser boundless realm figure. But Lin Sun's figure flashed in the air and moved away at a critical moment, causing the purple-robed man's attack to miss. And taking advantage of this opportunity, Lin Sun's figure tore the sky like a flowing light and disappeared in an instant. His speed was so fast that the purple-robed man couldn't help but be stunned. I didn't expect this kid to be so good at escaping. But does he really think he can escape like this? The purple-robed man snorted coldly. He rushed up and moved through the void, chasing after Lin Sun. This guy is really stubborn. When the purple-robed man caught up with him, Lin Sun noticed it immediately and couldn't help cursing in his mind. He ignored it and used all his strength to teleport. Behind him, the purple-robed man was hot on his heels, and his speed was getting faster and faster, constantly shortening the distance between him and Lin. Young man, you can't escape. If you're sensible, then allow yourself to be captured right now. Otherwise, you'll be unable to avoid suffering once I catch up to you. The purple-robed man shouted from behind. Lin Sun turned a deaf ear and moved on his own. You really refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Lin Sun's fearless attitude made the purple-robed man more annoyed. However, he quickly stopped in his tracks. In the distance, two figures flashed out. At the same time, Lin Sun stopped because the two figures were Sword Gorge and Fu Nanli. Mountain Wind Dowlord, are you trying to make my little friend Lin your enemy? Xing Jian Gorge first looked at Lin Sun strangely, and then looked at the purple-robed man in the distance. Xing Jian Gorge, are you together? The purple-robed man was surprised. Yes. Xing Jian Gorge laughed. It seems that it's a misunderstanding. That's easy to deal with. Otherwise, the friendship between you and me will be destroyed today. The purple-robed man snorted and pointed at Lin Sun. This boy is not honest. He thinks I'm easy to deceive, but his lies are extremely naive. The most annoying thing is that he, a young man in creation realm, doesn't take me seriously from beginning to end. Deceive you? Both Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli were stunned. Yes, he said he killed Xian Hu. Do you believe it? The purple-robed man said, you should know how powerful Xian Hu is. How can he, a creation realm, kill him? This lie is simply thoughtless and full of loopholes. How can I not be angry? Lin Sun smiled bitterly. Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli laughed so hard that tears almost flowed out of their eyes. The violet-robed man instantly felt embarrassed, and he said angrily, What the hell are you laughing at? During the battle in the world of Life Lotus, I launched a sneak attack on Old Man Xinhu's group for the sake of avenging your Sword Gorge. Even though I wasn't able to kill them, I heavily injured the entire Cloud's End prefecture, causing this old man's injuries to be too heavy and be killed by the others in the end. Hearing this, Xing Jian Gorge was moved and said, No wonder I didn't see Jian State when Xian Hu and his companions returned to the realm of spiritual martial arts last time. It turned out that they were injured by you. When they entered the fourth life lotus, Wu Donghe returned in advance, and was killed by him and Fu Nanli. But when Xian Hu and Lei Song returned, there were only 4 people with them. The great boundless realm cultivator from Jian State did not return. This made Xing Jian Gorge guess that Jian State died in the world of Life Lotus. Xing Jian Gorge didn't expect that the death of Jian State was related to the purple-robed man. For a moment, he couldn't help feeling moved and said, Old guy, you still care about our friendship and avenge me. It's really, the purple-robed man interrupted, Well, don't thank me hypocritically. I just want to ask you, should that boy be taught a lesson or not? He was still angry with Lin Sun. Xing Jian Gorge said with a strange look, Mountain Wind, Lin Sun didn't lie to you. The purple-robed man was stunned at first, and then his cheeks turned red and he said, Xing Jian Gorge, I treated you as a friend, but you didn't hesitate to help him cover up his lie for that boy. He was about to go mad with anger. A creation realm cultivator killed a great boundless realm cultivator? Xing Jian Gorge, this old guy, could say that. Mountain Wind Taoist Master, calm down. It's true, Fu Nanli in the distance said quickly. You also want to help that boy lie to me? The purple-robed man trembled with anger. Who on earth is that boy? You 2 old guys don't even care about your face? If this is spread out, I will feel ashamed even if you don't feel ashamed. All of a sudden, Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Nanli and Lin Sun looked at each other and felt a headache. But after thinking about it, Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli understood Mountain Wind Taoist Master's mood very well. If they didn't know Lin Sun, they would also think it was impossible if they knew that Lin Sun, a creation realm cultivator, could kill Heart Pot. It could also be seen that Heart Pot and other old guys had the same mood when they dealt with Lin Sun. Suddenly, Lin Sun took a step forward and chopped at the purple-robed man with his sword. Boom! The sword chi full of nirvana fell like the water of the Milky Way, vast and boundless. The angry purple-robed man was stunned at first, and then his pupils shrank. Feeling the horror of this sword chi, he punched out without hesitation. Boom! The fist energy and the sword chi collided, but the fist energy burst like a piece of paper, while the sword chi continued to chop at the purple-robed man without losing its momentum. This startled him. Although he held back some of his strength in the previous punch, it was not something that a small boundless realm cultivator could resist, let alone a creation realm cultivator. But now it had been crushed so easily. Open! Seeing the sword chi coming, the purple-robed man did not hesitate to use all his strength. His palms and fingers formed a seal, condensing a fiery red light curtain. Boom! When the sword chi came, the fiery red light curtain suddenly rolled violently. Although the sword chi was finally blocked and dissipated, the power released by the sword chi made the purple-robed man's chi and blood tumble, and his face changed constantly. In the distance, Lin Sun stopped and cupped his hands, saying, "Senior, I offended you just now." "Mountain Wind, how do you feel?" Xing Jian Gorge asked with a smile. Since words couldn't convince him, the power of this sword should make this old guy believe it. The purple-robed man was silent for a moment and said, "This kind of power can't kill Heart Pot." He, who was originally angry, seemed a little embarrassed at the moment, and his expression was also very complicated. The power of Lin Sun's sword really surprised him. He didn't expect that a creation realm young man would be so powerful. When dealing with Heart Pot, I joined hands with Lin Sun, but in the end, it was Lin Sun who killed Heart Pot. Xing Jian Gorge explained in a warm voice. "I see." The purple-robed man looked a little uncomfortable. He remembered that when he first met Lin Sun, what Lin Sun said was indeed so. And this also meant that at that time Lin Sun really didn't lie. This caused the violet-robed man to feel extremely embarrassed in his heart, and he felt rather ashamed. Enough, not to mention you, Heart Pot and the others also didn't expect that Lin Sun's combat power would be so heaven-defying. Xing Jian Gorge stepped forward and patted the purple-robed man's shoulder with a smile. "What's more, no discord, no concord. Now, the misunderstanding has dissipated, and you also know Lin Sun's ability. Moreover, we haven't seen each other for a long time. This is a happy thing." The purple-robed man was also an open-minded person. He chuckled and said, "Sigh, the longer you live, the more stubborn you become. This time, my eyes were indeed blind. I didn't expect to make a fool of myself. I've made a fool of myself." As he said, he cupped his hands at Lin Sun. "I have offended you before. Please forgive me." Lin Sun quickly said, "Senior, you are too polite." "Lin Sun, this is the Mountain Wind Path Master from the martial epoch, an old guy who has passed 6 great silence tribulations." Xing Jian Gorge smiled as he introduced the two of them. "This is Lin Sun, the youngest disciple of Mountain Master Heart. He's cultivated for less than 500 years, yet he's already at the perfection stage of the creation realm. Moreover, his combat strength is so formidable that he can even kill an old fellow like Zijuwuji." The Mountain Wind Path Master couldn't help but say, Heart's successor. Is he the lotus that the Master of Heart has been waiting for?" Xing Jian Gorge and Fu Nanli nodded. The Mountain Wind Path Master sighed. "No wonder. A long time ago, I heard that as long as the successor of the Master of Heart appears, he will have the foundation of a great Tao that can change the world." However, almost no one believed it. Now, it seems that we didn't understand the Master of Heart's vision at all. Lin Sun was stunned. Could it be that many of the old geezers in the Sea of Destiny had heard of the ancient One Lotus? More updates for you. Chapter 3189. Lin Sun vaguely guessed it. His master should have lived for many epochs and had great prestige in the Sea of Fate, so even a powerful figure like Mountain Wind Taoist Master knew about his past. Zhong Qiu once told him that his master once helped Yuan Chu and Xuyin of Yuan religion and Xuyin of spirit religion to seize the opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao in the Sea of Fate. Because of this, he offended Heavenly Wizard of Voodoo religious and Sure of Zen religious. This was also the reason why Yuan religion and spirit religion protected the successor of Feng Siyuan. At this time, Xing Jian Gorge asked, "Mountain Wind, how many people are left in the martial epoch?" Only old Bai Zhe, Xiao He, and old Mu are left. The purple-robed mountain wind Taoist master sighed with emotion. With fewer and fewer people, it is more and more difficult to seize the opportunity. For example, in the last competition, I joined hands with old Bai Zhe, Xiao He, and old Mu, but we failed. Old Bai Zhe and old Mu were seriously injured and didn't come this time. Who hurt them? Xing Jian Gorge frowned. Mountain Wind Taoist master laughed. In the competition of Tao, everyone is an enemy. If you want to take revenge, you will have too many enemies. I just want to know who hurt them, Xing Jian Gorge insisted. After a moment of silence, Mountain Wind Taoist master said, I know you want to take revenge for the two old guys, but you'd better forget it. Even if you don't tell me, I will find out. Xing Jian Gorge snorted coldly and said, Only you and Xiao He came this time? Mountain Wind Taoist master nodded, Yes. Where is Xiao He? Mountain Wind Taoist master was stunned. A jade pendant appeared in his palm, and he calmed down to sense it. After a while, he narrowed his eyes and his face changed. Xiao He's aura is sometimes strong and sometimes weak. It is obvious that he has encountered a battle. Xing Jian Gorge was nervous and said, Then what are you waiting for? Let's go. Okay. Mountain Wind Taoist master led the way. Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Nanli, and Lin Sun followed him. On the way, Xinjiang Gorge also told Lin Sun something. As it turned out, Travel Sword Gorge, the Mountain Wind Dowlord, Xiao He, and the others had known each other since a very long time ago. All of them had traversed through numerous eras, and they'd encountered numerous deathless tribulations. However, after the destruction of the previous era, Xinjiang Gorge chose to enter the Lingwu era with his master, Yuan Shu. As a result, when the calamity of the era arrived, the Travel Sword Gorge entered the martial spirit realm. As a matter of fact, such a situation was not uncommon in the various eras of the Sea of Destiny. Whenever an era was destroyed, some people would choose to stay in the Sea of Destiny and wait, while others would choose to enter a new era to cultivate and seek the Tao. This also meant that the experts who entered the new era would appear in the corresponding plane world when they entered the Sea of Destiny before the calamity of the new era arrived. For example, the Xinjiang Gorge was the entrance to the spiritual martial realm. On the other hand, the experts who remained in the Sea of Destiny would remain in their original epoch. For example, the Mountain Wind Dowlord chose to stay in the martial spirit realm in the Sea of Destiny. Therefore, although he and Travel Sword Gorge were old friends, they were in different epochs in the Sea of Destiny. Lin Sun was naturally aware of this. When he asked Zhongqiu, Ruosu, and the others about their decision, he had considered this problem. Because if those senior brothers and sisters chose to stay in the Sea of Destiny, they couldn't pass the deathless tribulations, and their cultivation could only reach the great perfection of the creation realm. If those senior brothers and sisters chose to go to the new era to cultivate, they were destined to wait for a very long time to go to the ruins of Wei. Because only when the calamity of the new era arrived could they pass the deathless tribulations and enter the boundless realm. Only then would they have the opportunity to enter the Sea of Destiny again. However, when they entered the Sea of Destiny at that time, they couldn't come to the spiritual martial realm, but would appear in the new plane corresponding to the era they were in. It was worth mentioning that, before the calamity of every era arrived, most eternal figures would be killed by the deathless tribulations. However, there were also powerful and heaven-defying figures who survived after being killed by the deathless tribulations many times before the calamity of the era arrived. Of course, even more eternal realm figures would choose to enter the Kunlun ruins to avoid such calamities. Simply put, some died during the tribulation, some succeeded, and some chose to enter the Sea of Destiny to avoid it. The boundless realm was known as the Great Carefree and Great Freedom, and they could walk through many eras. This was absolutely not an exaggeration, because it was already extremely difficult to survive the deathless tribulations. On the other hand, those boundless realm figures had passed through more than 3 deathless tribulations. In other words, Travel Sword Gorge, Fu Nanli, Ren Futien, Xian Kettle, Lei Song, and the others had experienced the change of many eras to possess their current cultivation. The more times one passed through the deathless tribulations, the stronger one's cultivation would be. This was something that everyone knew. After all, the power of the deathless tribulations would grow stronger each time. To be able to survive under such circumstances time and time again, one's cultivation was naturally powerful without a doubt. But at the end of the day, boundless realm figures were ultimately within the scope of the boundless realm. For a lesser boundless realm figure like Zhu Wutian to be able to contend with a greater boundless realm figure, it was because his foundation was extremely heaven-defying to begin with, which was why the combat power he possessed was so powerful. The reason why it was called Lesser Boundless Realm was because he had merely encountered 3 deathless tribulations. If he was allowed to encounter even more deathless tribulations, with his strength, he was destined to be able to endure it. Simply put, the number of times one passed through the deathless tribulations was indeed a standard to judge whether a boundless realm person's combat power was strong or not. But it was not the only standard. Lesser boundless realm figures like Zhu Wutian, Ji Tianqing, and Zi Cheichong were living examples. As for a creation realm figure like Lin Sun, he had long transcended the change of eras, and the path he had embarked on was already different from the vast majority of boundless realm figures. Therefore, it was also destined that Lin Sun's Dao path couldn't be measured using the standards of boundless realm figures. Everyone knew that the mastermind behind the calamity of an era was the Primordium ruler. However, the Primordium ruler could only interfere with and borrow the power of the Great Silence lifeless tribulation. For instance, Envoy of Destiny Ing Shanying could borrow such power. The Primordium Bell, on the other hand, had come from the hands of the Primordium Hegemon. This treasure could also utilize the power of the Great Silence life-saving tribulation. As for where the source of the power of the Great Silence fateless tribulation came from, Lin Sun could only infer that this tribulation probably came from the ruins of Wonderful Tao. This was also the reason why the master of the core dimension, Chun Linkong, and Golden Cicada had gone to the ruins of Dao. Similarly, the reason why Lin Sun could deduce that the Great Silence lifeless calamity could only be disturbed and controlled by the absolute beginning ruler was because of Ing Shanying. According to him, the sovereign of Primordium who was the mastermind behind the scenes had been trapped in the ruins of Dao since a very long time ago. This was also why the Primordium ruler was so mysterious. Under such circumstances, only those figures that had entered the ruins of Dao would have the chance to investigate the identity of the absolute beginning ruler. As for the energy that belonged to the absolute beginning ruler that enveloped the surroundings of the ruins of creation, it was unrelated to the calamity of an era, and it was formed from the absolute beginning laws. This was something that Lin Sun had deduced a long time ago when he suppressed the trace of absolute beginning laws contained within the absolute beginning stone statue. Mountain Wind Daolord led the way at the front. In merely less than 15 minutes of time, the sounds of intense battle resounded from afar. At this moment, even Lin Sun's consciousness was able to sense that a black-robed man was suffering a pincer attack from 2 opponents in the distant expanse of the heavens and the earth. Those 2 opponents were a man and a woman. The man wore a lotus crown and a Taoist robe of wind and fire. He was like a monarch, and every single move he made caused a violet gold energy of the laws that was boundless like an ocean to arise. The woman wore a phoenix robe. Her long hair was as white as snow, and her skin was crystalline. She held a green palm leaf fan in her hand. Every time she waved it, a storm formed from green laws would sweep out. It was violent and devastating, and the aura of destruction was astounding. As for the black-robed man who was being pincered by the man and woman, he held a black broadsword in each hand. Sword chi surged and he was extremely powerful. However, His situation was clearly not optimistic. He was suppressed to the point that he could barely lift his head. Instantly, Mountain Wind Daolord's expression turned ugly. It's that adulterous couple, Old Fiend Shu and Yun Xiangzi again. It's them again? Did they do the same to Xiao He in the past? Xing Jianxia's expression sank. The black-robed man who was being attacked by the couple was none other than Xiao He. As for the couple, they were Old Fiend Shu and Yun Xiangzi. They were a pair of powerhouses from the fiendish Tao epoch, and were existences at the boundless realm. I'll explain to you later. Mountain Wind Daolord drew a battle saber and charged towards the battlefield. Xiao He, I'll help you. Let's attack together. Xing Jianxia did not hesitate to activate the lightning pagoda and charged over. Fu Nanli and Lin Sun followed closely behind. He, old man Xiao He, your helpers are here. Forget it, I'll let you live for a period of time. I'll come for your life the next time. Far away, a man wearing a lotus crown and a Taoist robe exchanged looks with the phoenix-robed woman. Before Xing Jianxia and company arrived, they retreated immediately. Swish, swish. Their figures flashed as they decisively teleported into the sky. They did not hesitate at all. Clearly, they realized that there was no chance of killing Xiao He at that moment. Old Fiend Shu, don't run if you have the guts. Mountain Wind Daolord bellowed as his killing intent surged. Mountain Wind, stop chasing. Xiao He hurriedly stopped him. Few people can catch up to this adulterous couple if they want to escape. Ha ha ha, Xiao He, Mountain Wind, don't think that Xing Jianxia and company will be able to help you just because they entered the Life Lotus world. Just you wait. Old Fiend Shu's unbridled laughter sounded from afar. It's been so many years since we last met. That old fart Chu Bujio is getting more and more arrogant. Xing Jianxia could not help but frown as anger suffused his brows. This chapter explained the various questions everyone had about the boundless realm and the great silence lifeless tribulation. Such explanations would not be repeated in the future. Chapter 3190. Xiao He, are you injured? Xing Jian Gorge looked over. The black-robed Xiao He put away the pair of swords in his hands and shook his head with a smile. I'm fine. He had always been a man of few words. Let's leave this place and find a place to stay. Xing Jian Gorge's gaze swept across the surroundings, and he acutely sensed that there were many terrifying auras in the surrounding area. Obviously, they were attracted by the battle just now. All right. The others nodded. In a valley shrouded in mist, Lin Sun, Xing Jian Gorge, Fu Nanli, and the others sat on the ground. On the way to the valley, Lin Sun had already learned about Old Demon Chu and Yun Xiangzi's origins from Fu Nanli. Old Demon Chu's name was Chu Bujio. He had passed 6 great silence lifeless tribulations. Yun Xiangzi was Old Demon Chu's Tao companion. This couple was extremely famous in the various epochs of the Sea of Destiny. It wasn't just because of their terrifying battle prowess, it was also because of their escape technique. They could be said to be the best in the world. Even those who were more powerful than them would find it difficult to intercept and kill them. A long time ago, Xing Jian Gorge, Mountain Wind Daolord, Xiao He, and the others had a feud with Old Demon Chu and his wife. Mountain Wind, are you still not willing to tell me the whole story? Xing Jian Gorge looked at Mountain Wind Daolord. Mountain Wind Daolord fell silent for a moment, then smiled bitterly. I knew I wouldn't be able to hide it from you for long. I just didn't expect Xiao He to be targeted by those enemies on the first day we arrived in the world of Life Lotus. Fine, since you want to know, I won't hide it from you. As he spoke, he told Lin Sun about the whole story. When the first Tao Life Lotus of this era appeared, Old Baizhe, Old Mu, Xiao He, and I joined in. It was also at that time that we discovered that our former enemies had formed an alliance. An alliance? Xing Jian Gorge narrowed his eyes. Yes, this alliance is led by Ying Tianxing of the Devil Era. It has gathered 19 boundless realm existences, including Old Demon Chu and his wife. Mountain Wind Dowlord said with a solemn expression, most of the people in this alliance have a grudge against us. After we entered the world of the Life Lotus, we suffered more than one attack from them. As a result, even though we had the chance to enter the Great Tao Lotus the first 3 times it appeared, Ying Tianxing and the others were always hostile towards us. We had no choice but to escape from the world of the Lotus in advance. Pausing, he continued, in the 4th world of the Life Lotus, Old Baizhe and Old Mu were ambushed when they were trying to escape. They were heavily injured and almost died there. Up until the appearance of the world of the Life Lotus this time, they had yet to fully recover from their injuries. Naturally, they didn't have the chance to participate. Hearing this, Xing Jiangorge and Fu Nanli's faces turned gloomy. Those enemies had actually formed an alliance, and they'd repeatedly attacked Mountain Wind Dowlord and the others. This was simply going too far. Actually, alliances like this are quite common in the world of the Life Lotus. After all, the more people, the greater the power. Especially the contest between boundless realm levels, the number of people often plays a crucial role. The Mountain Wind Dowlord said in a light voice, for example, Xin Hu, Lei Song, and the others have formed an alliance with some old fellows from the other eras a long time ago. Otherwise, with their strengths, how could they have possibly seized the opportunity to head to the ruins of Tao during the last battle? Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help asking, who did they ally with? The Mountain Wind Dowlord said, yes. The group of old fellows led by the Buddha era's Du Feng and the Shaman era's Wang Xinghai. Fearing that Lin Sun didn't know the relationship between them, Xing Jiangorge added, in fact, Xin Hu and Lei Song originally came from the era of Buddha and the era of witchcraft. In other words, Sure, the patriarch of the Zen sect, and Heaven Wizard, the patriarch of the witchcraft sect, came from those 2 eras. Lin Sun suddenly understood. Suddenly, he remembered something. The 9 Supremes Tao tribulations he experienced in the River of Eras, in the ruins of creation were the 9 most powerful tribulations for eternal realm experts. They were born from 9 eras. And among these 9 eras there were the martial era, the Buddha era, the shaman era, and so on. For example, Xing Jiangorge and the Mountain Wind Dowlord came from the martial era. For example, Xin Hu came from the Buddha era. Lei Song came from the shaman era. Even the destined envoy Ying Shanying, whom Lin Sun met back then, also came from the Tao era, one of the 9 eras. With this inference, Lin Sun instantly realized that the old demon Chu and Yun Xiangzi he met before should have come from the Devil era, one of the 9 eras. Interesting. Could it be that the strongest eras in the River of Eras are these 9 eras? When Lin Sun thought of this, he suddenly realized something. After the eras were destroyed, these 9 eras did not continue to exist in the ruins of creation. This was the same as the immortal martial civilization of the last era. They were completely destroyed in the ruins of creation, unlike the other eras that could still survive in the ruins of creation. Does this mean that the more powerful the eras, the more terrifying the tribulation of destruction they will encounter, and the easier it is for them to completely disappear from this world? Lin Sun vaguely felt that this should be the case. The situation is already so dangerous, but you still sneak-attacked Xin Hu and the others in the world of Life Lotus. You are simply courting death. Xing Jiangorge sighed softly. It seemed like he was blaming Lin Sun, but in fact, he felt warm in his heart. I didn't sneak-attack them alone. I did it with Xiao He and Old Baizhe. The Mountain Wind Dowlord laughed. What should we do next? Fu Nanli asked. The current situation was very clear. Their opponents were the enemies led by the Devil era's Ying Tianxing. At the same time, there were also the old monsters from the Buddha era and the Witch era. Of course, when they really fought for the opportunity to go to the ruins of wonderful Tao, all the other people in the world of Life Lotus were potential opponents. Originally, I planned to send Gu Yuesheng, Xuanhuai Jia and Shuya to the ruins of wonderful Tao if there is a chance. But now it seems that our top priority is not to think about snatching the opportunity, but to deal with the threat from the enemy first. Xing Jian Gorge's expression was uncertain. The situation was indeed very serious. The enemy's lineup was very strong. For example, the alliance led by Ying Tianxing had a total of 20 people. Just this point could make any boundless realm figure's heart tremble with fear. Not to mention that they still had to face the threat from the powerhouses of the Buddha era and the Witch era. On the other hand, they only had these people on their side. The gap between them and the enemy was too great. That's the only way. Fu Nanli nodded. He was also aware of the seriousness of the situation. Seeing the depressed atmosphere, Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Seniors, in my opinion, if we can't beat them, we can just run away. Yes. What's more, there are still about 800 years before the end of the era. In the following years, more and more great Tao life lotuses are bound to appear. As long as we can survive, we will have a great chance to wipe out our enemies one by one in the future. What he said was very optimistic. Xiao He, who had been silent, couldn't help but cast a glance at Lin Sun, as if to say that this creation kid was still too young to understand the seriousness of the situation. But Mountain Wind Taoist Lord laughed. Xiao He, don't underestimate our young friend Lin. I forgot to tell you before that our young friend Lin is not simple. It was because of his appearance that Xian Kettle, Lei Song and the other old guys were all killed. As he spoke, he told Xiao He everything he knew from the Travel Sword Gorge. Xiao He was stunned after hearing it. After a long time, he said, "Amazing!" For Xiao He, who was a man of few words, it was rare for him to praise Lin Sun with these 3 words. After Gui Weisheng and the others join us, why don't we go to the 9 heavenly passes together? Xing Jian Gorge suddenly said. The 9 heavenly passes. A Fate Lotus Tao altar stood towering at the center of the world of the Fate Lotus, and anyone who was able to occupy the Fate Lotus Tao altar for a day would be able to seize the critical factor to head to the ruins of the Tao and become the final winner. Around the Life Lotus Tao altar were 9 heavenly passes. Every heavenly pass was like an ancient and towering fortress. Only by occupying a heavenly pass could one have the chance to occupy the Life Lotus Taoist altar. In the past, every time a battle broke out, the powerhouses of each camp would fight for a heavenly pass at all costs. It was for the chance to occupy the Life Lotus Taoist altar. And the cultivators outside the 9 heavenly passes, even if they had great abilities, they wouldn't have the chance to occupy the Life Lotus Taoist altar. Because of this, the 9 heavenly passes became one of the most bloody and cruel places in the Life Lotus world. We don't have any chance to occupy a heavenly pass. Even if we do, it will be taken away by others at any time. That place is not a place we can participate in. The Mountain Wind Dowlord sighed lightly. He'd participated in numerous battles in the Life Lotus world, so how could he not understand how dangerous it was to seize control of the 9 heavenly passes? Even a boundless realm cultivator had to face the danger of losing his life. Xing Jian Gorge's gaze burned. We're only going to challenge it, and it isn't really for the sake of seizing the Life Lotus Taoist altar. Challenge? The Mountain Wind Dowlord was stunned. Exactly. Xing Jian Gorge nodded. Lin Sun faintly understood Xing Jian Gorge's thoughts when he heard this. In the 9 heavenly passes, so long as one was able to occupy a heavenly pass, then one would be able to control the energy of the laws of the heavenly pass and become the master of the heavenly pass. But at the same time, one would face seizing it from other cultivators. The method of seizing it was very simple. 2 stone steels stood outside every single heavenly pass. One was inscribed with the words Life and Death Duel, and the other was inscribed with the words Victory. These 2 stone steels were called the Grand Tao Combat Steels. Those that intended to seize a heavenly pass only had to utilize the energy of the Grand Tao to strike the Tao Combat Steel to issue a challenge. On the other hand, The person that occupied the heavenly pass had to accept the challenge within 30 breaths of time after the sound of the Grand Tao combat steel resounded. If one didn't accept the challenge within 30 breaths of time, then the person that occupied the heavenly pass would lose control of the laws of the heavenly pass and be expelled. Chapter 3191. The challengers had to choose the life and death duel on the Tablet of Tao, and then the battle would end. If the challengers chose the death duel, they only needed to decide the winner. In the past, most of the challengers would choose the life and death duel. Only those who hated each other would choose the life and death duel. However, this was only a minority. In order to survive, or to seize the opportunity to go to the ruins of Tao, there were also some people who were mortal enemies who chose the life and death duel. It was worth mentioning that the Lord of the Heaven Pass had a great advantage. He could choose to fight by himself or his companions. At the same time, the rule power that the Lord of the Heaven Pass grasped ensured that he didn't have to worry about being ambushed by others when the challenge started and ended. This meant that only those who guarded a Heaven Pass had the chance to fight for the Life Lotus altar. The others couldn't even enter the Heaven Pass, so they naturally wouldn't have the chance to fight for the Life Lotus altar. How do you plan to challenge? Mountain Wind Path Master asked. Xing Jianxia looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun is in urgent need of a fight. Only in this way can he achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation and enter the boundless realm. That's why I set my target on the 9 heaven passes. For Lin Sun, that's undoubtedly the most suitable place to fight. Hearing this, even the silent Xiao he couldn't help but say, breakthrough? This was the sea of destiny. The great silence lifeless tribulation couldn't possibly appear here. Under such circumstances, how could he achieve the boundless realm? Mountain Wind Path Master was also puzzled. Xing Jianxia smiled. I forgot to tell you too. Young brother Lin had once attained the Tao within the river of Era in the ruins of creation, and his cultivation has already transcended the change of eras and stepped onto a unique and supreme path towards the Tao. He's no longer affected by the great silence lifeless tribulation. Mountain Wind Path Master gasped. In other words, even though he has achieved the boundless realm, he's already completely different from us old guys? Exactly. Xing Jianxia nodded. At this moment, even Xiao He was shocked and showed a look of disbelief. The lotus that the master of the square inch mentioned back then has really appeared? Obviously, he had also heard the rumor of the eternal lotus. If little friend Lin is able to corroborate the boundless realm, Fu Nanli's eyes lit up. Then what kind of terrifying combat strength does he possess? He seemed very excited. Thinking about it, Lin Sun, who was at the great circle of creation realm, could restrain 3 boundless realm existences with his power alone. He was able to kill someone like Zijuwuji, who was only slightly weaker than Xian Kettle. He could kill Tsang Long Yu and Panwu Fuxing in one fell swoop. Even Xian, whose life-threatening attack was blocked by him. Under such circumstances, if Lin Sun reached the boundless realm and his cultivation was improved by a big realm, how incredible would his combat power be? By then, which of the old guys in the world of life spirits would be his match? The most terrifying thing was that Lin Sun still had 5 great Tao physique. At that time, he alone would probably be able to match up to 6 pinnacle boundless realm existences. This was the reason why Fu Nanli was so excited. It was also at this moment that Fu Nanli understood the intentions of the Travel Sword Gorge. With their battle prowess, it was impossible for them to go against those enemy camp. But as long as Lin Sun reached the boundless realm, this situation would change. Old Fu, don't be too happy too early. The most urgent thing is to ensure that Lin Sun succeed. This also means that even if we go to the 9 heavenly passes, we must first ensure that Lin Sun will not be harmed by others. The Travel Sword Gorge said calmly. Fu Nanli was awestruck and nodded. Seniors, since it's a challenge, why don't we choose a heavenly pass occupied by the enemy? Lin Sun suddenly said, in this way, We can also get rid of some opponents, by the way. Are you going to carry out the life and death duel? The Travel Sword Gorge and Fu Nanli were all shocked by Lin Sun's idea. Seniors, don't worry. I won't act recklessly. When the time comes, I will act according to the circumstances. If I really encounter some unbeatable opponents, how can I risk my life? Lin Sun smiled. The Travel Sword Gorge and the others breathed a sigh of relief. You said before that as long as we are alive, there will be opportunities for revenge and robbing in the future. So, you must not act recklessly. The Travel Sword Gorge said seriously. This was the care and concern from the bottom of his heart. Lin Sun could naturally feel it. He felt warm in his heart and said, Senior, don't worry. Suddenly, there was a sound of breaking the air in the distance. Gu Yuesheng, Shun Huijia and Shiye came together. Seeing that the three were safe and sound, the Travel Sword Gorge was completely relieved. He stood up and said, Everyone is here. Let's go. The 9 heavenly passes had their own names. They were Yuan, Yin-Yang, 3 elements, 4 divisions, 5 elements, 6 directions, 7 stars, 8 diagrams and 9 palaces. The place where each heavenly pass stood was a place that the strong who participated in the competition had to fight for. 4 divisions heavenly pass. A place like a huge castle, standing against the mountain, was thousands of meters high. Its whole body seemed to be made of black magic iron, giving people a sense of indestructible majesty. An obscure power of rules, like a light curtain across the heaven and earth, shrouded the 4 divisions heavenly pass. That obscure power of rules was a barrier formed by the power of rules of the world of life lotus. It connected the entire 9 heavenly passes and protected the life lotus Tao altar in the center. And the 9 heavenly passes were the 9 gates to pass through this barrier. This also meant that if one wanted to seize the life lotus Tao altar, they could only seize a heavenly pass first. This was the first day of the world of life lotus. This time, there were 281 cultivators who entered the world of life lotus. And at this time, when Lin Sun and the others saw the 4 divisions heavenly pass from afar, they discovered that there were already many figures gathered near this heavenly pass. About 20 to 30 people. Almost all of them were in groups. The least were 3 to 5 people, and the most were 8 to 9 people. There were men and women, young and old, and their auras were all terrifying. Most of them were great boundless realm existences. The rest were also lesser boundless realm cultivators. Such a scene made Lin Sun unwittingly move. In the outside world, boundless realm existences were like dragons that could not be seen. But in this world of life lotus, it was almost all boundless realm existences. Of course, this was easy to understand. After all, these boundless realm existences came from different epochs. There seemed to be a lot of them, but in reality there was only a small group of people in each epoch. When Lin Sun and the others arrived, there was a commotion in the area near the 4 divisions heavenly pass. Many people revealed surprised expressions. It's the martial epoch's mountain wind, Tao Lord and Xiao He. I didn't expect them to still dare to come. Aren't they afraid of being targeted by Ying Tianxing and the others? Someone said softly. Travel Sword Gorge and Fu Nanli are here too? But during the previous 4 fights in the Great Tao Life Lotus, it was Heartpot, Lei Song, and the others who came from the martial spirit realm. Did something happen? Some people's eyes flashed with a strange look. These old fellows had lived for countless years. Just by seeing Travel Sword Gorge and the others appear, they keenly sensed many things. There's actually a creation realm young man. When they sensed Lin Sun's aura, many people revealed astonished expressions. In the outside world, the creation realm could be regarded as a supreme giant, enough to be looked up to by all living beings in an epoch. But in the world of life lotus, not to mention the creation realm, even the ordinary lesser boundless realm existences were nothing. Under such circumstances, it was hard for a creation realm existence like Lin Sun to not attract attention. That feeling was like watching an ant barge into the world where a divine dragon resided. Needless to say, it was extremely surprising. But soon, Lin Sun was ignored. This was the same treatment he received when he first entered the world of Life Lotus. No one took him seriously, and ignoring him was actually the greatest contempt. Taoist Mountain Wind, leave quickly. Don't stay here. The 4 divisions Heavenly Pass is already occupied by Ying Tianxing and the others. If they find out, they will definitely rush out to deal with you. Before they arrived at the 4 divisions Heavenly Pass, a silver-robed old man warned Mountain Wind, Tao Lord, and Xiao He. Everyone present looked at Lin Sun and the others with a strange look. In the world of Life Lotus, the feud between Ying Tianxing and Mountain Wind Tao Lord was already known to everyone. But now, Mountain Wind Tao Lord and the others had taken the initiative to appear here. How could they not let their imaginations run wild? Thank you for the reminder, but we are here for Ying Tianxing and those old bastards, Mountain Wind Tao Lord said indifferently. His words caused an uproar. The old monsters looked at each other. What was going on? Were Mountain Wind Tao Lord and the others planning to fight to the death with Ying Tianxing and the others? You're courting death. Suddenly, a group of figures appeared on the towering 4 divisions Heavenly Pass. Each of them shone with divine radiance and looked terrifying. The one who spoke was old Demon Chu Bujio. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked down at Lin Sun and the others in the distance with a sneer in his eyes. He said, "You old things, and you even brought a little thing in the creation realm with you. You are really tired of living." The people beside old Demon Chu laughed. Their eyes were either cold, disdainful, murderous, or nonchalant. "Get out of here before we lose our temper. Otherwise, we'll kill you right now." A rough-looking, dark-skinned, golden-robed man with eyes as red as the grand sun shouted. His voice rumbled through the world like thunder. It was more than impolite. It was a complete humiliation to Lin Sun and the others. Do these old bastards think that we won't dare to kill them just because we're guarding the 4 divisions Heavenly Pass? A fair-skinned, young-looking man in linen said slowly. How about this? I'll lead some fellow Taoists to kill them first. It'll serve as a warning to others, so that there won't be anyone who dares to challenge and snatch the 4 divisions Sky Pass in the future. These words caused the expressions of the old monsters in the surrounding area to darken and turn a bit ugly. How could they not tell that the man in linen seemed to be targeting Mountain Wind Tao Lord and the others? But in fact, he was also threatening them. More updates for you. Chapter 3192. The reason why the old monsters gathered here was to seize the opportunity to fight for the 4 symbols Heaven Pass. But it was obvious that Ying Tianxing and the others were too powerful, so no one dared to act rashly. Although they were threatened by the man in linen, they could only endure it for the time being. But Mountain Wind and the others didn't. Gu Caoji, cut the crap. Bring your men and fight your way out. Mountain Wind Path shouted. And you, indomitable spirit. If Ying Tianxing hadn't protected you in the past, I would have twisted your neck. How could I let you bark like this? The young man in linen was Gu Caoji. And the man in golden robe, who had a rough appearance and dark skin, who had asked Lin Sun and the others to get lost, was Indomitable Spirit. Being scolded by Mountain Wind Path, both of their faces darkened, and killing intent surged in their eyes. Old Thing, Old Bai Zhe and the others barely survived last time. Do you really think the same thing will happen to you? I'm coming to kill you right now. As Gu Caoji spoke, he was about to rush out of the 4 symbols Heaven Pass, but he was stopped by someone. Why do you need to be so serious with these losers? The one who spoke was an old man standing in the center. He looked like an immortal with a kind face. He wore a wide sleeve and held a horsetail whisk in his hand. He looked like an immortal who was above the heavens. But when he spoke, both Gu Caoji and Indomitable Spirit quieted down. Outside the 4 symbols Heaven Pass, the old monsters who were scattered all around were in awe. The immortal old man was Ying Tianxing. He was a supreme legend from the Devil era, a terrifying existence who had survived 7 great silence tribulations. Tianxing was a well-known top-notch existence in the Sea of Destiny's various epochs. He was enough to make the other old monsters fear him. How strong was Tianxing? Lin Sun had asked Xinjiang Gorge, and his answer was only one sentence. In a one-on-one situation, characters like him and Fu Nanli might be able to fight against Tianxing, but they will be the ones who will be defeated in the end. It should be known that Xinjiang Gorge could be called a giant in the boundless realm, and he was on par with old guys like Xian Hu and Lei Song. But he said that if he fought against Tianxing, he would definitely lose. One could imagine how terrifying Tianxing's cultivation was. He, you've been shouting for so long, yet you don't dare to come out and fight. Don't you feel ashamed? The Mountain Wind Path Master sneered, and his voice echoed throughout the world. This caused Gu Shaoji and Mu Unyielding's expressions to become even more unsightly and gloomy. Old Man Mountain Wind, if you have the ability, do you dare to choose the life and death duel? Gu Shaoji shouted loudly. I guarantee that I'll make you die a horrible death. His voice was filled with thick killing intent. But before Mountain Wind could speak, Lin Sun suddenly said, Senior, let me fight. His words silenced the crowd. In the nearby area, the old monsters were all astonished. What did they hear? A young man in the creation realm actually dared to boast shamelessly that he wanted to have a life and death duel with Gu Shaoji? 4 Divisions Heavenly Pass was also in an uproar. Those old monsters looked at each other in dismay, their expressions strange, almost not daring to believe their ears. Even Tianxing, an ambitious man in the boundless realm, was slightly stunned, and then he sneered, I've stayed in the Sea of Fate for a long time, but I haven't seen such an arrogant young man for many years. Everyone couldn't help laughing. They also sighed with emotion in their hearts. In the outside world, they could really meet many ignorant and fearless characters like Lin Sun. But in the ocean of destiny, all of them were old fellows who'd experienced the vicissitudes of life and lived through numerous eras. So, how could they possibly dare to speak such ignorant and foolish words? At this moment, even Mountain Wind Lord was caught unprepared. He didn't want Lin Sun to fight with Gu Shaoji. It was too dangerous. Gu Shaoji was a ruthless character who had passed through 5 great silence tribulations. Born in the Devil era, he had an iron heart for killing and a violent temperament. He had killed countless people in his life. In terms of combat power, Mountain Wind Lord thought that he was on par with Lin Sun. Perhaps only Xinjiang Gorge and Fu Nanli could beat Lin Sun. Young friend, don't be rash, Mountain Wind Lord reminded nervously. Xinjiang Gorge and Fu Nanli also looked at Lin Sun and shook their heads slightly, signaling him not to worry. Gu Shaoji was not a good opponent. What was more, they didn't want Lin Sun to take risks in the life and death duel. All these scenes were seen by the other old monsters in the field, and they couldn't help shaking their heads. Obviously, they were sure that Lin Sun dared to speak arrogantly just now because he was ignorant and fearless. In this way, it would be a disgrace to Mountain Wind Lord and Xinjiang Gorge. After all, it was a joke for a young man to be so arrogant at this moment. Don't worry, seniors. This is a rare opportunity to kill the enemy. For me, he is just a whetstone. Lin Sun said calmly and went straight ahead. Mountain Wind Lord and Xiao He wanted to dissuade Lin Sun, but they were stopped by Xinjiang Gorge, who transmitted his voice to Lin Sun, let him go. If he can kill Gu Shaoji, we can vent our anger. Only he and Fu Nanli knew how powerful Lin Sun was. He really came out to die? There was an uproar nearby, and those old monsters widened their eyes. Xinjiang Gorge, why didn't you stop him? Someone frowned and looked at Xinjiang Gorge in confusion. The young man wants to hone his cultivation. Let him go. Xinjiang Gorge said calmly. You're sending him to die. A white-haired old woman couldn't help but speak out furiously. An existence at the creation realm is a supreme figure that's rarely seen even in the outside world. As long as he proves his Tao to the boundless realm, he's bound to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with us in the future. How can you send him to his death? Xing Jiangorge's lips twitched and he smiled bitterly. What else could he say? High above the quadrant heaven gate, Ying Tianxing and other old guys also looked very strange. They had seen ants who were not afraid of death, but they had never seen such a fearless one. What's the difference between doing it when you know it's impossible and throwing away your life? This was not boldness, but stupidity. In this strange atmosphere, Lin Sun seemed to have nothing to do with it. He stood 3,000 meters away from the gate of the quadrant heaven gate. On both sides of the lofty gate stood 2 stone steels that were 9 meters tall. The stone stele on the left was inscribed with the 3 most primitive and ancient Tao runes, life and death duel. The stone stele on the right was inscribed with the 3 words, victory or defeat. The aura of the stone stele was extremely obscure, and it was enveloped in the laws of destiny. The words on it seemed to be formed naturally, as if they were the markings of the stone stele. There was no trace of chiseling at all. Looking at the 2 stone steles, Lin Sun couldn't help but have a thought. This was the world of the Fate Lotus, formed by the Great Tao Lotus, and the Great Tao Lotus was born in the ocean of destiny. But here there were the 9 great heavenly gates, the Tao Lotus altar, and these 2 stone steles. These were clearly not natural scenes. So, who was the one who did all of this? Lin Sun didn't know. He had asked Xing Jiangorge and the other old geezers before, but no one could give a clear answer. They only knew that many eras ago, the great Tao lotuses that were born in the Sea of Destiny already had these scenes. For countless years, many old geezers with extraordinary cultivation and boundless wisdom had made many speculations and investigations, but they had found nothing. Up until now, the Tao Lotus altar, the 9 great heavenly gates, and the great Tao competition were still a mystery that had never been solved. Gu Caoji, do you dare to fight to the death with me? Lin Sun calmed down and put his hands behind his back. He looked at Gu Caoji in the distance. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere became more and more strange and silent. Everyone had different expressions. Except for Xing Jiangorge and the others, almost everyone thought that Lin Sun was courting death, and it was an ignorant and fearless action. Gu Caoji's face was very ugly. He was challenging Mountain Wind Taoist Lord, and he didn't want to deal with a weak creation realm cultivator. Even if he won, it would be disgraceful if it was spread out. He looked at the others. Old Gu, no one will fight on your behalf. Go quickly and deal with this kid so that he doesn't continue to clamor like this. If others see this, they will think that we don't even dare to deal with a creation realm cultivator. Nu Unyielding said with a smile, and his eyes were full of ridicule. At this moment, Lin Sun spoke again. Nu Unyielding, do you dare to fight to the death with me after Gu Caoji dies? His voice spread all over the place. Everyone's eyes widened and their jaws dropped. Did Lin Sun mean that even Gu Caoji was no match for him, but he still asked Nu Unyielding to fight to the death with him? Nu Unyielding's smile suddenly froze and became ugly. Little guy, if you can really do that, I don't mind killing you in person. Gu Caoji's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Lin Sun's words stimulated his killing intent, and he felt that his dignity was being challenged. And Nu Unyielding's words at this moment made him even more furious. Seeing Gu Caoji's ugly face, Nu Unyielding hurriedly explained, Old Gu, don't get me wrong, I just say no more. Gu Caoji's killing intent was boiling, and his dark face was full of coldness. Later, I will pull out the tendons of this little guy, peel off his skin, and grind his bones to ashes. Only in this way can I vent my anger. As he said this, he looked at Lin Sun from afar and shouted, Come on! His voice shook all directions, and even the clouds were shattered. Even a boundless realm cultivator like him was so irritated. It could be imagined how much hatred Lin Sun's action had aroused. It should have been like this long ago. Just when everyone was worried about Lin Sun suddenly laughed and waved his sleeve, and a divine light swept out. Boom! The tablet engraved with the words, Life and Death Duel, on the left side of the gate of the Four Guardians' Heaven Pass, suddenly produced a roar. Suddenly, endless light rain intertwined. Under the gaze of the crowd, an ancient and mysterious battlefield appeared in the void in front of the gate of the Four Guardians' Heaven Pass with a bang. This battlefield covered a vast area, spanning between heaven and earth. As soon as it appeared, it gave off a heart-palpitating smell of blood and death. All the boundless realm cultivators present suddenly felt cold all over, and their skin was covered with a layer of goosebump. Their faces all changed slightly. I just got home, and there's still a fight in the evening. Chapter 3193. The Life and Death Battlefield. Those who participated in it would fight to the death. At this moment, the whole place was silent. Everyone realized that the young man in the creation realm was serious about dying. Even the sage-like Ing Tianxing couldn't help but frown. Was there really a creation realm cultivator who was tired of living? On the other hand, a cultivator who could reach the creation realm shouldn't be so stupid. Old Gu, be careful. Ing Tianxing reminded Lin Sun. Gu Caoji was stunned. Did old demon Ing think that the little guy in the creation realm was dangerous? What a joke! When he was about to say something, a strange power of rules emerged and shrouded him. The next moment, Gu Caoji appeared on the life and death battlefield. At the same time, Lin Sun also appeared, facing Gu Caoji from a distance. Swish! All eyes were on the two people on the life and death battlefield. Once they entered the life and death battlefield, they had to fight to the death. During this period of time, no one else had the chance to interfere, nor could they interfere. Life or death, it all depended on whose battle prowess was stronger. Alas, I've participated in the Life Lotus world for many eras, but I've never seen a life and death duel like today. Why would a creation realm cultivator want to die? The white-haired old woman sighed, puzzled. The other old monsters couldn't figure it out either. They all had different expressions on their faces. Old man, can Lin Sun win? Mountain Wind Path Master couldn't help asking. Whether he can or not, he's already on the life and death battlefield. Just wait and see. Xinjiang Gorge said calmly. I'm not as open-minded as you. Mountain Wind Path Master said grumpily. Fu Nanli reminded everyone, we have to be prepared in advance. When the life and death duel is over, we can't let others take the opportunity to hurt Lin Sun. Old Fu, are you so confident that Lin Sun can win? Mountain Wind Path Master and Xiao He were both surprised. Of course. Fu Nanli answered without thinking. At this moment, in the life and death battlefield, there was an obscure roar. Then, the power of rules that covered Lin Sun and Gu Caoji dissipated. Both of them regained their freedom. Gu Caoji couldn't wait any longer and attacked immediately. Little guy, go to hell! The shout was like a clap of thunder, resounding through the 9 heavens. His skin was dark, and he had a rugged appearance. At this moment, when he attacked, his figure that was mighty like a mountain rumbled as it emanated a boundlessly dazzling glow of the Tao, and it was golden and dazzling like surging lava. The instant that boundless realm aura spread out, it caused the hearts of many old freaks outside the battlefield to tremble. Gu Caoji, an old monster that had overcome 5 great silence lifeless tribulations and was born in the Devil era. He possessed a ruthless nature and slaughtered innumerable people. He was like an old devil. As soon as he moved, he directly slapped Lin Sun across the air. Boom! The golden hand, which looked like boiling lava, came out of the sky. At that moment, it was as if hundreds of thousands of volcanoes were rising in the sky, controlled by the golden hand and smashed towards Lin Sun. People couldn't bear to look at the ferocity and power of Lin Sun. They all imagined the scene of Lin Sun being incinerated and turned into ashes. Because this level of power, forget about creation realm, even minor boundless realm figures could not withstand it either. At this moment, the hearts of the mountain wind Dowlord and Shao he clenched tightly. On the 4 divisions Heavenly Pass, Ing Tianxing, Old Demon Chu, Tu Byuku, and the others all sneered. Under the watchful eyes of countless people, however, Lin Sun shook his head slightly as if he was a little disappointed. Boom! He casually slapped out. His palm struck out. The obscure ultimacy of Nirvana rose and condensed into a palm print, soaring across the sky. Boom! The 2 palm prints collided fiercely. Instantly, the sky was filled with lava and flames, and the rumbling sound was endless. People were stunned. The scene they expected did not happen. On the contrary, the terrifying power of Gu Shaoji's palm was easily resolved by Lin Sun. The white-haired old woman who was sighing with emotion before was stunned, and she revealed a look of disbelief. The other old freaks present were also dumbfounded. He blocked it. Our young friend Lin's combat strength really can't be measured by common sense. The originally nervous mountain wind Dowlord became excited, and his eyes lit up. Even Shao he heaved a long sigh of relief. Only Xinjiang Gorge and Fu Nanli remained calm. Anyone who had witnessed Lin Sun's fierce battle with Heartpot and others would know that the scene in front of them was really ordinary. On the 4 division Celestial Gate, the smiles of Ing Tianxing and other old freaks froze, and their eyes were filled with frightening luster. This young man's combat strength was really against the natural order. Before, they all thought that Lin Sun was courting death, and that he was ignorant and fearless. But now this perception was subverted. If this is all you have, you will die in a moment, Lin Sun said indifferently. He was tall and indifferent. If he had said this before, he would have been laughed at and despised by others. But now, the way people looked at him changed subtly, and many people even showed a trace of curiosity and expectation. If this young man was not reckless, but had something to rely on, this battle might add a lot of variables. And variables were the most attractive. I've traveled for many eras and killed countless creation realm freaks, including some nature-defying freak. But so far, no one has survived under my hands. In the distance, Gu Shaoji's eyes were frightening, and he suddenly stepped forward. The power Lin Sun showed made him awestruck. He didn't dare to look down on Lin Sun. He didn't want to fail in an easy task, even if it was almost impossible. But what if it happened? As an old man who had dominated for many eras, Gu Shaoji seemed to be violent, but in fact, he was far more cautious and calm than he looked. When he felt something was wrong with the previous blow, he decided to go all out and finish the battle quickly. Boom, 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 boom. As Gu Shaoji rushed forward, every step was like a chaotic thunder, and the terrible power of the Great Way spread from his stalwart figure. Looking from a distance, it was like a flame that tore through the ages, shining with boundless light. Cut! A burning red Taoist sword slashed out, setting off dazzling and magnificent clouds of fire all over the sky. Everyone could see that Gu Shaoji had used all his strength at this moment. That kind of power could easily kill ordinary people in lesser boundless realm. At this time, a trace of blazing fighting intent finally emerged in Lin Sun's eyes. Rise! Lin Sun took out the abyssal sword cauldron, and the qi around him suddenly rumbled. Instead of retreating, he rushed forward. Clang! The red Taoist sword slashed down, shaking the abyssal sword cauldron violently. Then, a terrible torrent of fire spread out from the Taoist sword. It was violent and overbearing, and the aura of destruction was astonishing. Boom! Under the attack, Lin Sun's figure was pushed back by the terrible flames. Before he could stand firm, Gu Shaoji attacked again. His aura was overbearing and violent. The burning Taoist sword slashed out hundreds and thousands of times in an instant. Layers of sword shadows and divine flames swept out like a raging sea, filling the battlefield with a terrifying aura of destruction. The aura of destruction was terrifying. Everyone's expression changed. Gu Shaoji's power was too strong. Every move he made had the power to incinerate the sky. As he attacked with all his strength, the power became even more terrifying. If they were in Lin Sun's position, they would probably do their best to resist. The mountain wind path lord and Shao, he couldn't help but feel nervous again. Haha, this brat has finally suffered. Someone in the 4 divisions Heaven Pass chuckled. Is it funny? Ing Tianqing looked indifferent, and a cold light surged in his eyes. He's just in the creation realm, but he forced Gu Caoji to use all his strength. Have you ever seen such a heaven-defying creation realm in all the civilizations? Everyone was silent, and their hearts were in turmoil. Yes, who had seen such a person before? No. The old monster who had chuckled just now stiffened, and he was a little embarrassed. What's more, Gu Caoji has already used all his strength. But look, has the young man been killed immediately? Ing Tianqing's eyes were fixed on the battlefield. As soon as he said this, the people nearby also keenly noticed that although Lin Sun was in an extremely dangerous situation and was constantly being defeated, it seemed that he would be killed at any time. However, he was able to avert the calamity by a hair's breadth. This made their faces full of surprise and doubt. Was this the combat power that a creation realm character could possess? I wouldn't be surprised if a lesser boundless realm character could fight against a greater boundless realm character. But if a creation realm could also do this, isn't this terrifying? Ing Tian's voice was low while divine light seethed in his eyes, and it was extremely shocking. We underestimated this kid earlier. It isn't that we're ignorant and ill-informed, but it's because a monster like this kid is practically impossible to find in the civilizations of the various eras. So, his appearance caused us to lower our guard. At this point, how could those old monsters not understand that the young man whom they thought was courting death was actually a unique heaven-defying monster in the world? Fortunately, no matter how heaven-defying this guy is, he's now suppressed by Gu Caoji. If he doesn't have other trump cards, he'll definitely lose. When he spoke up to hear, a rare trace of pity appeared on Ing Tianqing's face. Such a heaven-defying figure is going to die here this time. It's truly not worth it. He should have had a brighter future, someone said with a smile. If he's alive, then we'll be unable to eat and sleep in peace. After all, it's very likely that he'll attain the boundless realm when the next era arrives. At that time, there'll probably be no one who'll be a match for him in the ocean of destiny. Everyone else smiled as well, but their smiles were mixed with coldness. It was absolutely impossible for a creation realm figure to step foot into the boundless realm in the ocean of destiny. Not to mention that he would definitely die in this battle, so how could he talk about the future? At the same time, the battle in the arena of life and death grew even more intense. Rays of light shot out while rumbling resounded incessantly, and all sorts of phenomena of destruction appeared. The people scattered around the quadrant Heaven Pass noticed the abnormality of this battle as well, and their expressions changed repeatedly. This kid is actually able to fight Gu Caoji, who's attacking with his full strength until now? Although he's being suppressed, there's practically no one in all the eras that can compare to this level of combat strength. These spectators were shocked by the strength Lin Sun revealed, and all sorts of thoughts surged in their hearts. On the other hand, the white-haired old woman was extremely furious. She pointed at Travel Sword Gorge and cursed, "Travel Sword Gorge, you're sending such a unique and unparalleled creation realm young man to die. You're simply muddle-headed." First, I'm asking for monthly votes in addition. There's an extra update tonight, but it'll be a little late. Chapter 3194. Xinjiang Gorge, you've ruined a good seedling. Then, many people began to criticize Xinjiang Gorge. Think about it. With his foundation, he can reach the boundless realm in the great silence fateless tribulation. At that time, who can compete with him in the sea of fate? Alas, I didn't expect Xinjiang Gorge to do such a short-sighted thing. Those old monsters knew Xinjiang Gorge, but they didn't have much friendship with him. They could even be called competitors. But at this time, they were all angry because of Lin Sun. It could be imagined how amazing Lin's performance was. That was why they were puzzled and regretful about Xinjiang Gorge's arrangement of Lin Sun. Xinjiang Gorge didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he was scolded. Well, he had to take the blame for this for the time being. He looked at Lin Sun and thought to himself, Lin Sun, you can't be defeated. Otherwise, if what happened today gets out, Xinjiang Gorge will be condemned by all. Fu Nanli couldn't help laughing. This scene was so interesting. Even he didn't expect that those old monsters would feel sorry for Lin Sun. But did Lin Sun need to feel sorry? Of course not. So, the whole situation was very interesting. How dare you laugh? If Lin Sun is in trouble today, it's also your responsibility, Fu Nanli. The white-haired old woman's eyes were about to burst into flames. She almost spat on Fu Nanli's face from a distance, which made him feel embarrassed and stopped laughing. The white-haired old woman was called Crane Fairy. She had a fiery temper but was very popular. She came from the Soul Era and was also a boundless realm cultivator with extremely fierce combat power. Fu Nanli didn't want to annoy such a tough guy for no reason. In the final analysis, it was because Crane Fairy was fighting for Lin Sun, which made Fu Nanli unable to get angry at all. Old Xing, that guy's situation is getting more and more dangerous. You're not lying to me, are you? Mountain Wind Lord was very nervous. He had been staring at the fighting on the life and death battlefield. Seeing that Lin Sun's situation was getting worse, he was so anxious that he wanted to rush to help. So, Flying Sword Gorge had no choice but to explain patiently. Don't be impatient. This kid is doing this for the sake of tempering his combat strength. If he really wanted to fight with his life on the line, then that old fellow, Gu Shaoji, would have been unable to hold on a long time ago. Really? The Mountain Wind Dao Master was skeptical. Absolutely. Speaking of this, Xingjiang Gorge was also anxious. Lin Sun, you can't always be so passive even if you want to sharpen your combat power, right? If this goes on, you'll be fine, but I'm afraid I'll be spat to death by those old fellows. Just then, an exclaim resounded in the surroundings. In the life and death battlefield, Lin Sun, who was originally at a disadvantage, suddenly swayed, and a doppelganger of the Great Tao appeared, blocking Gu Shaoji's fatal blow. A Great Tao clone that is no weaker than the main body. Immortal Lady He's eyes lit up. Interesting, this young man is too interesting. At the same time, the nearby old monsters were also shocked. How could they not see that the power of Lin Sun's doppelganger of the Great Tao was no weaker than that of the main body? Because of this, they were all surprised. Did you see that? This guy is obviously well prepared. Ying Tianqing said coldly, however, this is not surprising. After all, who doesn't have a trump card in the world of Life Lotus? Sure enough, in the life and death battlefield, Gu Shaoji let out a sneer. I knew you had a trump card. Unfortunately, you still can't do anything to me. Boom. As he spoke, he flipped his sleeves, and with a clang, 18 red Taoist swords flew out, turning into a sword formation that enveloped Lin Sun. The sword formation was so powerful that it caused a burst of exclamations in the field. Many old monsters felt their blood freeze. Red Sky Great Demon Sword Formation. This was Gu Shaoji's trump card, known as the fiercest sword formation in the Devil Era. Really? What a pity. Lin Sun sighed softly. When a fierce battle evolved into a competition of treasures, it proved the limit of the opponent's combat power. For Lin Sun, such a battle could no longer sharpen his skills. So, it was time to end it. Pity. Hearing Lin Sun's words, before Gu Shaoji could figure out the meaning, another doppelganger of Lin Sun appeared in his field of vision. Then, with a bang, the Red Sky Great Demon Sword formation he had launched was easily blown away by Lin Sun and his two doppelgangers. The 18 Taoist swords wailed, and were violently shaken away. Lin Sun and his two doppelgangers went straight to Gu Shaoji. Boom! Caught off guard, Gu Shaoji was suddenly besieged, and his figure was submerged by the storm-like bombardment. The situation was reversed. This guy hid his strength too well. Damn, I felt sorry for him just now. It seems that I worried for nothing. It's really unexpected. There was an uproar in the field. Those old guys who were used to all kinds of battlefield scenes were shocked by Lin Sun's trump card. The unexpected was often the most surprising. But now Lin Sun had staged an unexpected counterattack. Old Xing, is this the trump card of Lin Sun? It's really powerful. Even I didn't expect his doppelganger to be so powerful. Gu Shaoji is doomed. Mountain Wind Path Master shouted excitedly. He didn't look like an old monster who had lived for many eras. However, Xing Jian Gorge understood Mountain Wind Path Master's feelings. When Xing Jian Gorge killed Heartpot and the others in the spiritual martial realm, he was also so excited that he lost control. The surprise Lin Sun brought to them was too great. Xiao He, who had always been silent, let out a long breath at this moment, as if a big stone in his heart had been removed. He felt relaxed all over. Damn it! How can this little guy's doppelganger be so powerful? Why haven't I heard of such a wonderful method in this world before? Gu Shaoji is in danger. The expressions of Ying Tianxing, Chu Bujiu, Tu Buku, and the others changed. Gu Shaoji also had a trump card, the Scarlet Firmament Great Demonic Sword Formation. But it was obvious that such a trump card was no longer a threat to his opponent. This shocked and infuriated them. When they thought about how they'd unconsciously thought that young man was stupid to the point of ignorance and was courting death, their faces burned, and it was uncomfortable as if they'd been fiercely slapped. Don't panic. If that's all, it won't be easy for him to kill Gu Shaoji. Moreover, with Gu Shaoji's strength and ability, he might be able to turn the situation around. Ying Tianxing said in a deep voice. Sure enough, everyone saw that although Gu Shaoji was in a difficult situation, he knew when to advance and when to retreat. He wasn't worried that his life would be in danger for a while. Little guy, I admit that I underestimated you. But do you think you can win like this? Wishful thinking. Gu Shaoji shouted fiercely in the mortal arena. His dark face was extremely livid, while the space between his brows was filled with a savage and ruthless aura. As a boundless realm existence that had experienced the tempering of life and death for a long time, it wasn't that he hadn't encountered such a predicament in his lifetime. Moreover, he was extremely confident that he could turn the situation around. However, Lin Sun grinned. Wishful thinking? Then I'll send you on your way right now. Bang! At this instant, Lin Sun and the two Taoist physiques attacked with all their might. Their combat strength erupted like never before, and it pressured Gu Shaoji to the point he almost spat blood. But he could still be blocked in the end. Gu Shaoji laughed with ridicule. Send me on my way? Looks like it won't work. Right at this moment, another clone suddenly appeared by Lin Sun's side, and it executed a lethal attack at an inconceivable speed. Go! Gu Shaoji was originally suppressed by Lin Sun and the two Taoist physiques to the point he couldn't even raise his head. So when the third clone suddenly launched a surprise attack, it completely caught him off guard. He was utterly unable to block it. Open! In an instant, Gu Shaoji's soul almost left his body, and he howled furiously. He was completely in a desperate state, and his boundless realm cultivation seemed to have been completely ignited. Bang! An earth-shattering roar resounded. Gu Shaoji's desperate attack was forcefully destroyed, and the rule power that covered his body suddenly exploded, bursting out countless light showers. Immediately after, his Taoist physique collapsed, and blood splattered everywhere. His primordial spirit couldn't even escape, and it exploded together with his Taoist physique. Rumble! In the mortal arena, the terrifying destructive rumble was still sweeping out, but Gu Shaoji, a boundless realm existence, had already been killed on the spot. The entire place was dead silent. Crane Fairy and the other spectators were all staring blankly. The final scenes that happened were as fast as lightning, and they were all overwhelmed. They didn't expect that Lin Sun actually had more than 2 Taoist clones. So much so that when they saw the bloody scene of Gu Caoji being killed, they were all stunned, and their hearts suffered a blow. At this moment, Mountain Wind Taoist's mood was simply indescribable. His face was flushed, and he only managed to squeeze out a word after a long time. Fierce. Xiao He's eyes were dazed. A creation realm could actually kill a boundless realm figure? Xing Jian Gorge burst into laughter. Finally, Lin Sun was no longer the scapegoat. Looking at the old guys on the battlefield who were losing their composure, Xing Jian Gorge suddenly felt an indescribable pride in his heart. Now, you finally saw the power of our young friend Lin, didn't you? Fu Nanli and the others also laughed. Among the people on the battlefield, they were the calmest, because they knew that Lin Sun had more than 3 doppelgangers of the Great Tao. Damn it! At the 4-level celestial gate, Ying Tianxing, who had been very calm, also looked gloomy at this moment, and his eyes were filled with uncontrollable anger. Looking at the other old guys around him, they all looked extremely gloomy. Gu Caoji was killed just like that. The scene of his death scared them all, and they almost couldn't accept it. Who could believe that a young man in the creation realm could kill a boundless realm existence like Gu Caoji? At this time, Lin Sun, who was standing in the mortal arena, also became the focus of attention, and every old monster present was shocked. Add updates, continue to ask for monthly vote. Chapter 3195. Gu Caoji's battle prowess is about the same as Zijuwuji's. I might not be able to take him down with my main body, but I'll be able to kill him with 2 clones. However, I'll be hit by his final counterattack, which could easily injure me. Lin Sun thought to himself. The reason why he had revealed his 3rd clone earlier was so that he could catch Gu Caoji off guard and kill him, thus preventing himself from being injured in this battle. A strange fluctuation of rule power spread out. Then, Lin Sun's figure was teleported out of thin air, and the arena of life and death disappeared. The winner lived. The loser died. This was the duel of life and death. Young man, what's your name? Lady he couldn't help but ask the moment Lin Sun appeared in the area before the 4 celestial gates. Her eyes were filled with undisguised admiration. Young friend Lin, this is Lady He. Xinjiang Gorge quickly introduced Lin Sun. Lin Sun, the heir of the core dimension, greets you, senior. Lin Sun cupped his hands. So you're that Lin Sun? Lady He was stunned. But aren't you rumored to be at the transcendent state? The other old monsters were also stunned. A few years ago, they'd received news that a successor of the core dimension named Lin Sun had wreaked havoc in the 9th heaven of the eternal world, dealing a heavy blow to the Zen sect and Shaman sect. This matter caused such a commotion not because of the power Lin Sun displayed, but because of his identity. He was the heir of the core dimension. He was also the lotus that the master of the core dimension had been waiting for. As for the rumors regarding the eternal lotus, these old fellows all knew about it. However, no one expected that Lin Sun, who was rumored to be at the transcendent state, would now be at the creation realm. Moreover, he'd just killed Gu Caoji, a boundless realm cultivator. Could it be that what the master of the core dimension said back then was true? Lady He and the others' emotions surged as they recalled many things of the past. So you're that Lin Sun. At the same time, Ying Tianxing and the other old monsters seemed to have understood as well. They looked at Lin Sun with undisguised killing intent. Get ready for battle. Xingjian Gorge quickly transmitted a message to Fu Nanli and the others. Now, if Ying Tianxing and the others came out, Lin would be besieged, which would be dangerous. Lin Sun looked up at Muddy Unyielding on the 4 Guardian Sky Pass and said indifferently, "Just now, you promised to have a life and death duel with me. Do you regret it now?" The surroundings fell silent. Many people gasped. Was Lin going to continue the life and death duel with Muddy Unyielding? Looking at Ying Tianxing and the others, their expressions changed. Who would have thought that Lin Sun was Gu Xiaoji's opponent before? The old man's unyielding face also darkened as he said, "Regret? What a joke. Do you think I'll be afraid of you?" If one were to really compare their combat power, Mu Unyielding's combat power was slightly stronger than Gu Xiaoji's. However, Nu Buku knew very well that he would have to pay a heavy price to kill Gu Xiaoji in a life-and-death battle. But Lin Sun had killed Gu Xiaoji without being injured. This made Nu Unyielding's heart tremble. Therefore, even though his words were extremely domineering, he wasn't very confident. "Since you're not afraid, come and fight," Lin Sun said, not hiding the cold killing intent in his eyes. Cold killing intent. As he spoke, he waved his sleeves and hit the Dao Arena tablet engraved with the words, "Life and Death Duel," again. "Do you still want to fight?" Lady He and the others felt dizzy. They felt that their cognition had been impacted today. A young man in Creation Realm had just killed Gu Xiaoji, and now he wanted to kill Nu Buku. If this was spread out, who would dare to believe it? However, compared with before, Lady He and the others were much calmer. After all, they had seen Lin Sun's incredible combat power, and had a new understanding of Lin Sun in their hearts. Thinking calmly, they even didn't think that Lin Sun was reckless. "Isn't little friend Lin a little too fierce?" Mountain Wind Lord was stunned. He suddenly remembered the scene when he saw Lin Sun for the first time. If Lin Sun directly attacked him at that time, what would the consequences be? "He just wants to help us kill more enemies while sharpening himself." Xing Jian Gorge's eyes were complicated. He saw through Lin Sun's intention and was quite touched. "This time, no matter what happens, we can't let Lin Sun get hurt," Fu Nanli on one side said in a deep and resolute voice. Buzz bursts of strange and obscure rule power emerged, and the life and death arena was about to reappear. The atmosphere in the 4-division Sky Pass was extremely depressing and dull. Those old monsters were all gloomy, and their eyes were full of killing intent. Gu Xiaoji's death had already caused them to feel enraged and humiliated. Now that Lin Sun had issued another challenge, they felt as if their dignity was being challenged. Only Nu Buku's face was stiff, and his heart was heavy. He wanted to slap himself. Why did he agree to this man's challenge so rashly before? Of course, he could go back on his words now. But under the watchful eyes of so many people, once he went back on his words, he was bound to admit that he was inferior to Lin Sun, who was in Creation Realm. It was also bound to ruin Nu Buku's reputation. For a moment, Nu Buku felt that he was in a dilemma. At this moment, boom! The life and death arena appeared in the air. Then, 2 figures, wrapped by the mysterious and obscure rule power, appeared in the life and death arena and confronted each other from a distance. One was Lin Sun. The other wore plain clothes and was cultured and refined, and he seemed like a handsome Confucian scholar that was well-read and possessed an extraordinary bearing. But he was not Nu Buku. Seeing this scene, Lin Sun was slightly stunned. And the faces of Xinjiang Gorge all changed. Even Nu Buku himself was stunned for a moment, and then he looked at Ying Tianxing. He knew that this must be Ying Tianxing's doing. Crane Fairy scolded, "Ying Tianxing, as the Lord of the 4-division Sky Pass, you used the rule of the Sky Pass to cheat. Don't you feel ashamed?" Other old monsters also showed disdain. Ying Tianxing, who looked like a sage and kind, said indifferently, "Crane Fairy, since I am the Lord of the 4-division Sky Pass, I can naturally arrange people to fight according to my will. If you don't agree, you can come and fight." No one could refute his words. This was the advantage of guarding a heavenly pass. Life and death duel? Yes. But the Lord of the Sky Pass could decide who to fight. "Young friend Lin, your opponent is the Hu Yong Demon Lord. Although he has passed 5 great silence lifespan tribulations like Gu Xiaoji, his battle prowess is not inferior to Heart Pot. You must be careful." Xinjiang Gorge immediately transmitted. He told Lin Sun some information about his opponent. The Hu Yong Demon Lord was one of the top boundless realm cultivators of the demon era. He controlled the time rule, and his innate ability was Ashes of History. His Tao weapon was called the Wheel of Time, and its power was unfathomable and mysterious. In Ying Tianxing's camp, the Hu Yong Demon Lord was definitely one of the best. Even in the Sea of Destiny, he could be said to be fearsome. Knowing this, Lin Sun's heart couldn't help but boil with fighting spirit. An opponent no weaker than Heart Pot, an unparalleled demon lord who also controlled the time rule. Such an opponent could only be encountered in the world of the Life Lotus. Young friend, you must be careful. Even Fairy He's expression turned solemn. Although she was dissatisfied with Ying Tianxing's despicable actions, what was done could not be undone. A life and death duel with Hu Yong Demon Lord, it's going to be difficult. The others couldn't help but feel worried for Lin Sun. If he was unyielding, they wouldn't be so worried for him. But Hu Yong Demon Lord was different. His strength had long since been known to everyone in the great Tao struggles of numerous eras. Old friend, what should we do now? The Mountain Wind Path Lord began to worry again. Worry caused chaos. Xinjiang Gorge said. Even Heart Pot's desperate attack was blocked by young friend Lin. If he really goes all out, young friend Lin might be able to kill him. Sigh, I'm still very worried. The Mountain Wind Path Lord sighed. Haha, this kid will definitely die in this battle. Many old monsters in the Four Sky Pass revealed bloodthirsty anticipation. They wanted nothing more than for Hu Yong Demon Lord to kill Lin Sun and avenge Gu Caoji's death. On the life and death battlefield. A long time ago, your master, the Master of the Heart, injured me in the struggle for the great Tao and almost caused me to perish. However, misfortune and fortune are closely intertwined. It was precisely because of that injury that I was able to tap into my potential and recover to my peak strength. Moreover, I've taken a step forward on the boundless Tao. Hu Yong Demon Lord's voice was like the morning bell and evening drum. He was dressed in a scholar's robe, and he was cultured and refined like a scholar. He didn't have the slightest aura of a demon lord. But his words caused Lin Sun to raise his brows. This old fellow actually fought with his master? Lin Sun smiled indifferently. So, doesn't this mean that you have to thank my master for enlightening you? That's right. Hu Yong Demon Lord didn't show the slightest trace of anger, and he smiled warmly. So, in order to repay his kindness, I'll pluck this lotus that he's been waiting for. I'll tear off its petals and watch it wither. Isn't that beautiful? The meaning behind his casual words caused others to shudder. You weren't a match for my master all those years ago, and you're bound to be a match for me today as well. Believe it or not, we'll know in this battle. Lin Sun's expression was calm, and he was calm and composed as before. A young man at the creation realm was still able to maintain such a domineering and composed demeanor when facing a terrifying existence like Hu Yong Demon Lord. This caused many people to raise their eyebrows. It was even to the extent that Ying Tianxing couldn't help but sigh with emotion. How great would it be if he could use this brilliant lotus? Unfortunately, lotuses would wither and wither as well. Right at this moment. I think so as well. Demon Master Hu Yong laughed, his eyes filled with undisguised admiration for Lin Sun. After this battle is over, I'll paint a painting of a withered lotus and a withered leaf to commemorate you and express my gratitude.